The dungeon called the Ancient Dragon Nest has finally been cleared by none other than player Shin Sang-yun, who really is tired of all this. Why is he working so hard when he's almost in his 60s? It's been 30 years since he started his life as a swordsman, however. His best achievement was that he was in the top 100 of the country. He's basically just a needle in a haystack filled with needles. His reward for this clearly seems to be a skill book, but he has eaten these types of artifacts before. Maybe he can turn it into a stew or something. With a large light, a portal appears, and the Constellation Late Bloomer model student enters, congratulating Shin for his hard work and complimenting him for his amazing final strike. This is his contracted constellation. He's really grateful he actually got one, since he's only a third-rate swordsman. However, he has quite a few needy conditions. In level 850, all his artifact and title stats are doubled, and on level 900, those stats are tripled. He has yet to benefit from these because he's only level 650. The late bloomer modern student suggests he gets to eating the skill book, but Shin was just in the middle of doing that. To devour artifacts, this is the only skill that he has gotten since awakening. In order to understand his skill, he tried boiling them, frying them, but nothing came out different. By the time he ended his experiments, rather useless ones too, 30 years passed. All that he had to do to use his skill was use mana synchronization. As if the artifact is of suitable rank, it will naturally devour it. However, this realization came far too late for him, as others grow powerful as soon as they awaken. This time the devour is a failure too, making Shin throw it away in anger. Shouldn't there be instructions or something? The model student apologizes. There's very little information about that skill, so he's not able to help. He also says that since there is a lot of time, he should start the mana synchronization once more. Shin can't believe him. How can he say that when he's almost 60? And if he had a child at 30, they would be turning 30 soon. If he had a child even earlier than that, he would have grandchildren. The model student apologizes for saying something wrong, but Shin says that he hasn't done anything wrong. His life is just full of regrets. He could never forget that person's tall back. He tried his absolute best to become like him, but he's exhausted and far too old for any of this. The model student gets an idea. Before Shin can say that he's going to retire, the model student casts a spell on him that proceeds to slowly melt him. The model student is using the essence he experimented with to give him what he wants, another chance, in the form of a regression. At a TV show, Park Jong-min, a reporter for the Player G, asks someone about the dungeon and gates. They are basically environments for those awakened, or players as they call them, right? Han Hyun-jung, the Hyunjung Corporation CEO, confirms as such. The dungeons are basically the stepping stones, and the gates allow them to travel to other dimensions in completely new worlds. It's an amazing sight to see. Shin watches all of this on his old TV, surprised that he actually did regress to his time. He now has a firmer grasp on the situation, but 4 days have already passed, and he has only gone back 30 years. After the model student did that thing, he lost consciousness and woke up in his studio apartment. He knew right quick that he wasn't in his old and decrepit body, but in his fresh and young one. He knew then that this was the constellation's miracle, but that still leaves many questions. That's why he's confused, but he doesn't care, as now he can go back to work. With him, he has a bronze artifact, the Venomoth dagger. He was really lucky to acquire something like this. It may be low rank, but he knows of its hidden skill. He begins absorbing it slowly, the rate of absorption being rather slow since he has not used it long. But what's important is the hidden skill. The mana synchronization with the dagger begins, and he is dragged into the gap of consciousness, the place he needs to go through in order to eat an artifact. He always gets nervous when he comes to this place, but it's rather pleasant now. The preparations to absorb the dagger are complete, and it comes in the form of rotisserie barbecue chicken, drizzled with fresh olive oil. Shin is glad to see a normal dish, and not something like centipede mush. With that, he begins indulging, and after he's finished, he permanently gets 2 agility, and the secret skill, Demon Bash. With that, the dagger disappears completely. A shame it got destroyed, but he did obtain the skill he wanted, plus a pretty nice meal, so he should get going and see what he can do now. At the 85th dungeon, Yoon Deuk-young's team eagerly waits to go inside, but suddenly someone runs up to him, which he recognizes as the Porter Group leader. He explains that one of his team members, one Shin guy, pulled out of his team. He's just a newcomer who joined 4 days ago. Deuk-young tells him not to worry about him. It's been decided that he will be joining the player team anyway. The Porter leader is confused. How can a Porter become part of the player team? Deuk-young tells him that he had the final approval. Is there a problem with that? The Porter leader says that of course there is. It has not been long at all since he awakened. He hasn't even been through the player academy yet. Adding someone like that to his team is something extremely shunned upon. If he does this, the team will become unbalanced. How is he supposed to distribute the work? Duck-young turns to him and asks, does he not take care of everything in the end? Like his party and the distribution of items? The porter leader is intimidated, so he backs away without saying much else. But even one of his men wonders why he accepted Shin. He did so because he believes that if someone has to die, he would rather that guy die than any of his. And he will also make an excellent example to those porters. Eventually, Shin arrives and introduces himself. But everyone, from the porters to the players, gives him strange looks, which they aren't even trying to hide at this point. Daekyung greets him warmly. He thought he would be late on his first day since it's almost time to start. He also sees that he has a longsword, which Shin explains he has studied on the internet. Daekyung warns him that it's one of the hardest things to wield properly, but Shin vows that he can at least protect himself, so there shouldn't be any worry. Daekyung trusts him and his spirit. A man certainly needs that. So he tells everyone to follow him as they are about to go in. As everyone does so, Daekyung looks at Shin and thinks he's ridiculous. One can't just study that blade on the internet. He probably thinks that the dungeons are just for fun, but he will soon see that being a player is not all sunshine and rainbows. According to the strategy he got, this is an orc dungeon, which is extremely deadly for new players. So he will soon learn on his own how foolish he is. That same fool manages to take out all of the orcs in front of him, including the boss, without even getting so much as a scratch. He has done this so swiftly that everyone wonders who the hell he is. The orcs are monsters that are a part of any good fantasy setting, and because people are so familiar with them, it was a given that they would have prejudices. More specifically, that they are weak. Naturally, when compared to monsters such as a dragon, they certainly seem that way. But because of this, new players, their hearts filled with arrogance, jump into fights with orcs thinking that it's an easy kill. Unfortunately for them, the orc is rather simple. They usually average around 250 centimeters long and have a weight of 180 kilograms. These two physical traits give them an unimaginable gap in power against puny humans, and for this reason, they are called the Wall of Lament, something noobs can hardly get over. As they walk into the dungeon, one of the party members tells Shin that he won't get any special treatment from any of them just because he's a new player, and the porter leader also thinks he's acting all macho just because he awakened. What an arrogant bastard. Shin says that he will try his best while thinking that everyone is out for him, but the party members tell him to not just try but actually do his best. Was he this annoying as a porter too? Shin just smiles and asks if he can fight in the front lines if they come across some monsters. The party member tries to tell him that he has a death wish, but when he looks behind, he spots a gigantic orc. Shin is excited to have his first battle after regression, but the party member jumps in with his shield and screams that he's totally insane. How is he going to use a great sword against this guy when he moves so slow? Shin tells him that he doesn't need help, making the party member scream even more, but Shin advises him to look in front of him. The party member does so, but it's too late, as a gigantic axe is hurling itself towards him. Suddenly, Daekyung intervenes and puts the orc to the ground with a bash. He reprimands the two for speaking so casually. They should get it together already. The party member apologizes, and Daekyung explains that he will take care of this guy. The orc, now filled with rage, charges in, but Daekyung easily blocks the attack and charges his blade into the orc's tough chest. This makes the team think that he is dealt with, but the orc becomes even angrier and charges in with his axe while taking the blade out of his chest. Shin watches silently. He is not impressed by Daekyung at all, and considering he is the highest level here, and only a level 50 at that, he doesn't have much hope for the rest. He charges in once again, hitting the orc straight this time, making it fall to the ground. The party celebrates, and Daekyung asks if they are all right, but before he can celebrate with them, a party of red orcs appears, all of them ready for a bloodbath. The party members become spooked and ask what they should do. Daekyung, knowing that he alone can barely take care of one orc, tells them that they have to retreat. Shin wants to give it a try, immediately gathering disdain from the other members. But before Daekyung can tell him not to do it, he charges in, killing the first orc with a single slash. The party members are awestruck. How can a newbie split a red orc in two like this? Shin expected to cut him fully, but he doesn't have much power since he's only level 1. The orcs notice his arrogance and charge in while screaming, but even if Shin is lower level, he still has years of experience under his belt. The 3 orcs that charged him are instantly dealt with, allowing the armored one to slash in his direction, and the strike almost connects, but Shin expertly dodges and slashes upwards to take him down. The party members are all shocked, and now fully believe that he can do it. Shin moves on to the final orc, a heavily armored one, who screams out as it strikes. Shin simply jumps away from its attack and tries to slash his head off, but the blade stops. Daekyung tells him that the skin is too thick, but it's too late, as the armored orc has already redirected his attack to chop Shin's head off. He, however, is not worried at all. as he activates the Demon Bash skill, which hinders a target for 2.0 seconds, with the success rate and hindrance depending on the target. This seems to have stunned the orc completely, who can only scream, as its head flies out from its neck. Everyone is stunned to see this, even more so since the fact that he is a fresh awakened lingers in their minds. That hindrance skill too, he thought that a player's best record for that was 1.5 seconds. The party also talked about his skill with the greatsword. Just what kinds of videos has he watched to learn this? Daekyung doesn't know what to say. Where did this guy get a hindrance skill? Shin levels up as a result of this, and he also fulfills the conditions for a title, an F rank one, the Fearless Immature Puppy. This gives him +5 evasion, but Shin is more pressed about the name. Since he has one stat point available, he puts it into luck, as it relates to skill hit rate and artifact drop rate. Daekyung asks if he really is who he says he is. He just used a hindrance skill. Where did he even get such a thing? Shin can't tell him he just regressed, so he says he got it when he awakened. Daekyung thinks he's trying to avoid the question with this. Maybe he just got lucky and pulled a diamond rank artifact. He's referring to the sword, so Shin gives it to him, only to see that it's just an ordinary greatsword, meaning that the skill he used really was his. Daekyung is annoyed. He has been running dungeons left and right for 2 entire years, but even he does not have a skill as good as this, despite being level 50. Before he can think anymore, a scout reports that the middle boss is up ahead. Daekyung knows he cannot let this dampen his reputation. He thanks Shin for taking care of the ads, but he should not overstep his role. That skill of his will not do a single thing against a demonic orc after all. Shin now remembers why he returned to this party specifically, so he calls out Daekyung and asks if he kills the demonic orc on his own, can he receive the artifact that drops upon killing it? The Crimson Stone is an artifact that can only be dropped by a demonic orc, but even those have a really low chance of dropping it. However, Shin learned something in his past life when their team failed to defeat the demon orc. They were lucky enough to see the Crimson Stone in person when another team got their hands on it. The others asked how they managed to get such a rare thing, and thought it would fetch a pretty penny on the market since it has the delay skill. Shin remembered that skill until now. It is one he desperately needs. He already knows that this party distributes items based on contribution. If he defeats that monster alone, then there should be no issues, right? It is critical for him to obtain the delay skill for the future, but most people would think badly of him, who is acting cocky when he's just a newbie. Sure enough, the party members jump on him. He thinks he's so tough when he only took care of a couple of orcs. Daekyung tells him to do as he pleases without even giving him his glance, but that's only if they fail to defeat the boss. Only then will he be allowed to enter the dungeon on his own and kill the boss. Does he understand? Shin is happy with this outcome, but this means he will step out of this battle, right? Daekyung tells him to do whatever. He will show this cocky bastard what's what. Just because he's got a rare skill, he thinks he can take a boss down? He will show him that what truly matters on this battlefield is the people you lead and the experience one has. Upon entering the door, they encounter the middle boss, the bloodthirsty demonic orc. Daekyung tells everyone to prepare. They will just circle it and attack from the rear when they can. He laughs at Shin's notion of solo play. He will never get the chance to do that. Not here anyway. He rushes in with his squad valiantly, but soon enough, Daekyung wakes up confused on the ground, covered in blood, wondering what even happened. Shin is actually worried for them. He didn't expect to see them charge in like that. This is probably why they failed in the past too. The party asks what they should do. They obviously can't just let themselves get killed. Daekyung wonders why all the orcs here are so strong. Even the first one was a problem. He will kill his informant the next time he sees him. Anyway, he is not about to let his squad get killed because of his greed, so he sends the order to retreat, which Shin is very glad to hear. They all think something's wrong with him, but the order remains the same. They will retreat in its flank. Before leaving, Daekyung approaches Shin and says that he warned him he shouldn't haunt him if he dies. Shin scoffs. He should relax. Nobody is going to die today. The demonic orc charges him angrily, Shin thinking that if they are to compare stats, there's no way for him to win. However, he has experience on his side. He deflects the orc's blade, and the others hear this commotion, wondering if he really deflected that axe. Shin's hand stings from just this. Deflecting is probably his limit, but he won't stop, because he can see his prize, his Crimson Stone. The reason he's so adamant on getting it is the special effect of combining Delay and Demon Bash. It is hard to see how the 2-second stun that Demon Bash inflicts can still be improved, considering it's pretty good. However, with his Devour skill, he is able to combine the effects of skills. So this gave him an idea, to get a skill that would allow him to stack Demon Bash. That would be an amazing combination. It would basically let him apply an infinite stun, and with the Delay skill, something like this is more than possible. Shin challenges the demonic orc to come forward, who falls for this taunt and attacks once again. Shin got exactly what he wanted, because with this, he can find his weak spots. With a single slash, the demonic orc is forced to drop his axe because of the demon bash skill. And Daekyung can't believe something like that works on bosses. That should be illegal. Shin is surprised by how easily he dealt with something that's supposed to be difficult to kill. But suddenly, the orc kicks him without a warning, forcing him to block the attack. Shin actually forgot about the orc's next ability, its self-regeneration, which makes the stun last less than normal. In order to stun it properly, he needs 15 seconds, which is why he needs delay in the first place. If he cannot stun him, he just has to defeat him some other way. The orc attacks once again, but Shin knocks his axe down, and they engage in a brutal exchange as the others watch. The party members tell Daekyung that they should go. They have to get out of here before that guy dies. Daekyung, however, doesn't get him. His stun does not work, and there's a gap in their stats, too big for him to do anything. Why then is he making that kind of face? Is he truly a newbie, as he says? Shin has been in situations just like this more than a few times. If he is too weak, he just focuses everything into a single point. He will forget about cutting him and use his own strength against him. With this, he can pierce through. Using the orc's own momentum, Shin strikes him in the heart, killing the demonic orc in an instant. He gains 2 levels, along with the Demon Hunter title, which increases his health regeneration while fighting middle bosses or above. Shin is glad to see 2 titles already. These are the benefits of going solo. He gets distracted by Daekyung's approach before he can spend his points, who looks at Shin with complete awe. He knows that this will become annoying if he lets the situation end like this, so he exclaims that he almost died. What would he have done if his mighty leader did not deal damage? The party members immediately believe him, but Daekyung doesn't know what he's talking about. Shin just looks at him knowingly. He's giving him a chance to preserve that honor he so dearly holds on to. Daekyung looks at the orb and understands he got completely defeated. He tells the party that since they got rid of the middle boss, they will not be moving on to the final one. The party chats as they walk away, leaving Shin with the only thing he wants, the crimson orb, which he will try and eat. He goes into the gap of unconsciousness, where the crimson orb is presented as a masterfully crafted Naengmyeon with meat jelly. Shin is very happy to indulge in such a delicious treat, and with his first bite, the absorption progress begins. He also gains his health and strength stats increased by 2 because of the absorption, and soon enough gets the delay skill. With this, he can add the delay effect to his skills, so he chooses Demon Bash, which now will stack if he hits before the timer is over. However, these go in chances, although it's pretty dangerous at first. At least he is guaranteed a 4-second stun, something which would allow him to slay anything. Daekyung comes around and asks if they can chat. He just wants to let him know that the boss room to the Orc Berserker is right near this one. Shin asks him if he wants him to stay back again, but Daekyung denies that. He would be a fool to not utilize a member like him. He wants to work together with him. Shin agrees, but tells him that the conditions are the same, which Daekyung doesn't mind. A party member comes and explains that they are ready for the boss room, so they should go. But before leaving, he gives Shin a very stern look. He doesn't know why he did that, but whatever. They eventually get to the final boss, the Orc Berserker. Daekyung moves forwards with a frightened step, but Shin tells him to just stick around him for this fight. Orc Berserkers have lower skill resistance than, say, a demonic orc, so it should be easier to stun, in theory at least. As he charges the orc, he wonders if he was ever so confident. When he was young, he was scared all of the time. Then he grew old and struggled to stay alive because of his low level. He promised himself now to never live like that. He has to change, from his weak self and for his future. To do that, he must show and prove to everyone watching him now that he is a monster. After one slash, he screams at the others to charge in, as he's stunned for 4 seconds. They all do so with the orc only being able to see its death slowly approach. After more than a few slashes, the boss is killed, and the dungeon is cleared. The party members are surprised they cleared a dungeon so swiftly. The stun really made things a cakewalk. The porters discuss if they should talk with Shin for one of them to become his personal porter, but he doesn't plan to do crap for them. He gains 2 levels again and another title, Overflowing Power, which gives his status effects 10% more duration. This is something new to him, as he never got titles in his previous life, but he cannot compare himself to that man just yet. Do Gyunsu, the Ghost Blade, the Title Collector, the Complete Sword, and the strongest Korean swordsman. Only 2 years after the Age of Players began, he surpassed even level 500. Before, he looked up to him, but now that he regressed, he has the chance to catch up. Daekyung asks what he's doing, with him only admitting to stretching. But anyway, Daekyung wanted him to have something, an artifact ring. Shin asks what's gotten him, but Daekyung tells him that he carried their asses, and even though this is just a bronze rank artifact, He hopes it will serve him enough. Daekyung is giving it to him because they probably won't see each other from now on. It hurts, but he has to admit that he's living in an entirely different world than normal people. The guy who glared at him earlier cannot believe this. He's getting special treatment only because he showed off a couple of times. This is so unfair. He knows what he has to do, so he calls up one of his criminal friends. Back home, Shin admires the money Daekyung gave him, which is double the usual amount, and the bonus Berserker ring, which increases strength, but it also has the lighten effect. Shin is happy to see that effect on this ring, as it lets him spend 1 mana per second to reduce the weight of all artifacts equipped to 1 gram. Although he gets why it's bronze, most players would run out of mana before anything. But he's not most players. He only discovered his ability after 50 grueling years. But that is why he studied so hard. He devoured an artifact that needed mana in his previous life too, and he found something shocking. The special effect of the artifacts that require mana do receive a penalty, but their mana cost is completely removed. He doesn't care about the penalties, when he can just get more skills. That night, at Private Club H in Gangnam, the glaring party member tells his friend group of criminals about Shin and his 4-second stun. One of them reprimands him after he raises his voice. But so what? Does he want revenge or something? The member just wanted to tell them that he's loaded, but why would they give a crap? One of the girls tells the main criminal that he seems very close with that loser, prompting him to cut the member's ear off clean. Who the hell does he think they are? His personal maids or something? He splashes alcohol on the wound to make it worse, taking it as his price. He will listen as much as that ear is worth, so he should start talking and tell them where that bastard is already. The next day, Shin goes to the Jamshil training grounds, but has difficulty concentrating, because what came out of the Berserker ring was an Eastern cold cucumber soup that would kill anyone who would taste it. His stomach is still rumbling from what happened, but it's fine, as there's a silver lining. He throws the great sword around like a pocket knife before catching it. He has gotten the lightweight skill from the ring, which has its mana consumption deleted, but to compensate the artifacts will be 100 grams. He just has this big thing to play around with now, but he doesn't even want to know what will happen if he throws it. Next up, he looks at his stats, most being in luck and evasion. He has to grab the attention of the constellations soon, and since a player can only have one, he must pick carefully. If possible, he would like someone who goes best with the luck stat, but for now they won't even look at him. So training is the best thing he can do now. After a few days, he comes out of the training grounds, pretty tired from the whole ordeal. Not only did he train, but he also drove quite a lot. But he did manage to get a new skill, the ambidextrous sword training, which increases his adaptability with all manner of blades. He has arrived at the 101 dungeon, a solo player exclusive. It would take months to enter one normally, as he would have to wait in a queue, but driving here is much quicker. He looks behind him, as he seems to have some stalkers. He did not expect for them to come even through the forest. They must want something of his, but whatever it is, they will have to settle it in the dungeon. The criminal party eventually goes inside after Shin, where they find him waiting. This is supposed to be a solo player dungeon, and since he's already here, they should get lost now. The group leader asks if he's hit in the head, making Shin give them one last chance. He swears he won't report them. He analyzes their party. They don't have a healer or mage. They don't have sustainability, something crucial in a dungeon. They formed a party that seems to be solely created for hunting, human hunting. They are the hyena pack. The burly member laughs in his face. A broom-haired member tells him that he will die here, and nobody will be able to recover his body. In the past, these types of parties were eradicated by the Players Association's constant surveillance, but it seems these guys escaped their gaze. For parties like this, the archer is the hardest to get rid of. Shin explains that this is why he eagerly waited for them. If he had to hide 4 bodies, what better place than a dungeon? The burly guy gets mad, but the leader stops him, as they should do things the easy way now. He hesitates, but when Shin tells him to listen to his master like a good boy, he charges, blinded by rage. This is survival of the fittest, a saying that suits the dungeons best. Monsters are always on the hunt for players, and within the same dungeons lie artifacts that people will die for. Everyone knows when becoming a player that they are fighting with their lives on the line at every moment. If one is weak, they die. There are no rules here, so it's kill or be killed. That is what he experienced a lot of in his past life, and it seems that it still applies even now. As a result, everything he does here, no matter how brutal, is just simple self-defense. He beckons the others to come forth, but they run past him, with the leader telling the archer to cover them so they can get in position. He agrees, but he is rather startled by the fact that he killed Sangho. Even if he is an idiot, he managed to reach level 100. Even though he awakened recently, he was a good unit. Shin flips his sword as he asks where they are going, prompting the archer to shoot at him. But with one lunge, His arrows break in front of him, and the sword curbs his life. The leader is mortified. He threw a great sword at amazing speed. This can only mean one thing. He does not have a weapon now. This is the perfect time to attack. He screams at the last remaining member to attack, and they all rush to the same spot. Shin reaches for his blade, but the two attack at the same time. Their strikes go into the ground, as Shin has balanced himself on the blade. The swordsman thinks that he's insane, but that's his last thought, because as Shin pulls his blade out, the leader uses him as a shield to save his own blood. Doing so, without an ounce of regret, Shin lands, and says that he has thought about it while fighting. They seem to be organ traders, right? No matter how much he ponders, there's no way they are working together because of an undying trust or something like that. They are prodigy awakening mana stones through organ transplants, correct? He may look young, but he has seen some really nasty stuff. The leader says that it doesn't matter what he thinks. Even if what he says is true, he will die here. Shin just wanted to confirm, as he was getting pretty bored with them. Suddenly, the leader is stunned for 4.4 seconds because of the small cuts he incurred when protecting himself. Before he can wonder what type of skill this is, Shin says that his life will end today. The leader has never been in this position. Once he enters a dungeon with someone, he is always the predator, ready to feast on his prey. Shin notices his shaking, but why? Has he not experienced being close to death before? Is he afraid, now that it's his turn to meet death? After he's done with him, Shin washes his blade in a nearby river. He really doesn't want to get into a situation like this again. Now there's no chance that he will become noticed by the constellations. Well, that was self-defense, so it doesn't count, right? Still, he has obtained quite a nice haul of artifacts from this encounter, numbering 8 in total. Shin gets dressed, now he's level 10, and has gained quite a bit of stats from those criminals. Just based on the stats alone, he's basically at the strength level of a level 50, even though it's barely been a month since he returned. Additionally, he also had a silver artifact among the bronze ones, the recovery ring, which allows him to cleanse any status abnormalities using 10 mana, and can be used again in only a minute, but the mana cost will double. He got lucky, as he found this ring on the first guy he killed. If he put his trust in the stun, if they were to fight normally, he would have been screwed, so he will have to be careful. Naturally, he uses mana synchronization on the ring. Deeper into the dungeon, a bunch of goblins are going about their duties, but they suddenly spot Shin, who is slowly approaching, his eyes covered. This is because he wants to get the Lucky Day title. He has to kill 500 monsters with his eye closed. The goblins just growl at him, but one of them notices that his sword is an artifact, something which they desperately desire. Shin knows he has to detect their presence. He must feel the airflow and make sure his ears listen to everything. He focuses hard, everything around him becoming like water, so he knows exactly when and from where an attack will show. One of the goblins charges in, but Shin swipes forward, clearing him and the others with ease. He must admit, this actually feels pretty good. An arrow suddenly makes its way towards his head, but he notices and simply catches it, making the goblin who shot it sweat profusely. Shin admits that his previous situation was quite horrible. Thanks to that, he had a chance to reminisce about the past, and that improved his sense. Anyway, they probably don't even understand him, so they should all come at him. The goblins rush in with reckless abandon, only for Shin to begin his murder spree, cutting them up left and right. One of them knows that they are screwed, so it can only stare at his dead comrades as he waits for his turn. Eventually, Shin is done with them. He gains 2 levels, and since he killed over 500 of them, the Lucky Day title, which gives him 20 plus luck, an amazing boost. Shin is glad to see it in his hands, but a sat he analyzes. A bunch of goblins walk up. They come back home to stash their stuff, only to find everyone dead. Shin doesn't mind a few extra experience points though, so he swiftly deals with them too, boosting his stats even more. He really won in life. This stat alone could be worth $1 billion in the right hands. Suddenly, his surroundings grow dim as a portal opens behind him. It appears that 3 constellations have come to visit him. The cleaner of a fallen dimension is first. He wonders if he has any interest in making others unlucky. The pilgrim of grand space is requesting a conversation because of how intrigued he is, and the goddess of luck simply smiles and reaches her hand out. Shin is surprised by how quickly the constellations came, and even more so that 3 came at the same time. He guesses that it was probably because of the show he put on. The goddess of luck comes closer, analyzing him closer. Shin wonders if his word were too cocky and that angered her or something, but she's actually interested in him. She's intrigued, as she has never seen a swordsman that depends on luck before. Shin just smiles and agrees that he is lucky. It appears that all the constellations are actually interested in forming a contract, but he will take his time and confirm that. The cleaner of a fallen dimension praises him for acting so cruel. Shin knowing about him, he's a common constellation for Slayer types. Is he interested because of the goblins he butchered? The pilgrim of grand space is curious to taste his true intentions. Shin is not sure why he appeared, but he only appears to people who can become saints. If that is the case, he probably appeared because the goddess of luck did, as she seems pretty popular, even among the constellations. She glares at Shin before telling him that she has no real desires with him. If he wants, he can choose a different constellation now, and they can make a contract later. Shin is pleasantly surprised. He almost forgot someone like that existed. An archer who could hit his target from miles away while blindfolded, who had the blessing of the world, so running out of arrows was impossible. The Archer of Miracles, Hashimoto Yuki. He was given praise even amongst normal people, and some suspected this was all a hoax. The one who allowed him that power was the goddess of luck. Shin is still vigilant though. With 3 of them appearing at the same time, he has to think about it. The constellations are surprised and insist he decide without worry, with one of them arguing that he shouldn't have come here. Choosing the goddess of luck is a no-brainer here, but if he considers the possibility that he will not have the other constellations visit him, this single decision will decide his fate. When he had 10 years of experience under his belt as a player in the past, only one constellation reached out in that time. The late bloomer model student. He thought that everything would change with his appearance, that he would be able to change himself, but nothing changed, at least until he turned 55. He never knew what a real constellation did, because of those ridiculous requirements. He was never able to use the constellation's power. He didn't even bother, actually, but in the end, he was able to regress because of him, so he should be grateful. This means, though, that he must practice caution. He will probably not get the chance to regress again. What does he want from all this? Holy powers, utter destruction, or luck? Shin knows there's only one path, so he signs a contract with the goddess of luck, which will last 30 years after his death. A being from another dimension oversees the signing of this contract, and 15 friendly constellations congratulate him for doing what he wished, though. 3 other hostile constellations are mad that he did so, and declare that they will do anything to stop him. Shin didn't know these men were interested, but it's fine. As long as he has her, he doesn't need anyone else. He reaches his hand forward and she reciprocates, praising him for his wise decision. Before Shin can say anything else, he sees the contract effects, which are pretty good. Firstly, all his attacks will result in critical hits. Second, obtaining a unique or above artifact will unlock a hidden effect. Third, he now has a 100% chance to obtain artifacts from middle bosses and all bosses in general, even if low rank. Shin is amazed by these cheat skills, but it's not over, as now he can use 1 point to increase luck by 2. Shin begins shedding tears, and the goddess of luck asks what he will do with the other offers. Shin just sends them away, the pilgrim hoping that they will meet again, but the cleaner of a fallen dimension does not take this well, and promises to have his head. With this awesome contract effect, he will not need to worry about the future. He has to calm down, as there's bound to be better contacts in the future. Shin goes to the final boss room and immediately begins fighting it, while the goddess of luck cheers him alone. Shin is now fully confident in his abilities, so he charges the Goblin Lord, who sends him flying away with his axes. He is annoyed by Shin, so he uses his overwhelming status ailment to slow him down. Even though it's not as deadly as a stun, it still reduces someone's motivation to fight. Shin uses recovery before the Goblin Lord can get to him, making him confused. Even if that skill has limitations, it seems to have its niche uses every now and then. Now, he wants to test his new luck. The Goblin Lord cannot defend against his next attack, even if it tries to spam Overwhelm again. Shin's Demon Bash activates, and he's stunned for 2 seconds. But Shin is not satisfied, so he slashes the Goblin Lord again and again, activating Delay 2 whole times, giving him 4 more seconds. Now he's at Shin's mercy, and is rightfully terrified of him. After Shin is done with the Goblin Lord, he gains a bunch of levels in the Don't Touch Me title. But most of all, he's glad that it's finally over. The title gives him 30 luck and 10 evasion, and it also allows him to strengthen one of his skills. He really can't catch a break. First, there were those thugs who followed him, and now this dumbass dungeon. Is he just pushing his body too much? The goddess of luck mentions that he must have some pretty good luck to be able to do everything he did today. Shin notes that most people would assume he's just skilled, but the goddess of luck says that having good luck is a skill in itself, and she's glad to be supporting such a lucky player, although that's all thanks to her too. Shin ignores her and levels up his luck stat, which is now over 100, which is very good because once a stat goes over that threshold, their effects gain 10% effectiveness. For example, his evasion stat increases his evasion, and his luck stat affects drop rates too. This time, he got the Shield of Goodness, a support item that with the help of mana, can turn any damage taken into healing regeneration. That luck stat doesn't matter much though, since he already got a guaranteed drop thanks to her. If that is the case though, will increasing his luck stat increase the rank of artifact drops too? He begins mana synchronizing the shield while thinking that the goddess of luck will be more troublesome compared to the late bloomer model student. Near Jamsel Station, in the quest area, Shin gets promptly denied by a player association employee, and he gets why, but he has his own ideas in mind. She apologizes, but he should rethink his plans, as he really doesn't get how many bodies she had to look at just today. Shin thinks that he cannot allow this to stop him, as 2 hours ago, on the Honam Expressway, as he was driving and thinking about the meal he got from the shield, which was kimchi and rice, his car suddenly broke down on multiple levels, which made him think about needing a new one. But beyond that, he had to move out soon too, as being at this awkward level, he's statistically likely to get involved in crime. He cannot keep living in such constant fear, so it will be easier to live in a player town where surveillance is present. Additionally, with all the artifacts he would need, he needs to think about buying used equipment to make the process smoother. This only left him with one choice: to make money, and a lot of it too. Right now, there is only one place where he can get this amount: the system that was created alongside the players. With its appearance came the quests, and an organization that manages those quests, the Player Association. Certainly, with his abilities, he can do it. Now though, he's made no progress, and the employee tells him to just enter a dungeon appropriate for his level. Why is he trying to enter a level 100 dungeon anyway? Shin swears that he will not cause any sort of issues, and thinks that even if he's level 17, going to a low-level dungeon would be a time waster. The employee begins to cry, as she had someone say the exact same thing, so he should just go to a lower-level dungeon, for her at least. Shin understands where she's coming from. Plenty of people have died because they overestimated their abilities, but he has to remain willful and show that he can do it. Suddenly, another player overhears their conversation. It's Kim Miso from the Eden Guild, a level 100A+ rank player. Shin recognizes her as the Marksman of Devastation. She was the first player to reach level 100 and earn the title of Marksman. Although her skills are good, what makes her stand out is that she's the daughter of Shinsung Biotechnic's president, Kim Yoon-chil. What this means is that Miso, along with Shin Taeri, the Shadow Assassin, known for her title as the Greatest Assassin, and Cho Jin-ho, the Greatest Swordsman, are members of the same guild. Miso's father is also a majority shareholder in the Eden Guild, so she was born not with a silver spoon, but a diamond one at this point. She notes that she's never seen him before. She just happened to listen to their conversation. Is he interested in starting a level 100 quest? Shin tells her that he needs the money, while other players around the hall are wondering who he is to talk with someone like that. Miso tells him that it will be a challenging place, but Shin is aware of that. It's a high-risk, high-return situation. He certainly isn't acting like this because he hates her, even though he got rejected when he tried to join her party before regressing. Truly, he does not hold grudges, right? Miso wonders if he's aware that he's unable to proceed with that quest because solo players are not allowed. Shin forgot the solo player quest ban is going to be lifted 4 years from now, so he laughs it off and apologizes for causing trouble. Miso didn't tell him to leave though. How about she come with him? The players around them are very jealous, but Shin wonders what she's plotting and asks on what condition she wants to help. Miso asks why she can't just help a newbie out, but Shin has a hard time trusting people. Miso really has no condition for helping him. Rather, she wants a promise that if he disappoints her, he will have to pay for it. She will apologize if he can truly back his words, which makes Shin laugh. She wants to test him, as her influence doesn't stop at just being a player. Any clothes she chooses to wear skyrocket in price, and anything that comes out of her mouth is noted in an article. However, the moment she sees a player filled with confidence, that player can guarantee the end of their career. Unfortunately for her, he's not scared, so why don't they leave right now? When Miso came inside the building, she really had no other plans since her guild members were busy. She had to look for new party members, and at the same time, she heard Shin's argument with the employee, and because she was looking for a player full of confidence, she naturally grew interested in him. She asks the employee what quest Shin was trying to do alone, and she eagerly shows it to her. It's a defense quest, where one has to guard a tower from wolf-like beasts, with a quest reward of 500 million won. Miso is surprised, as she thought he would have chosen something like a fetch or raid quest. Due to the restriction on these quests, it is only possible to clear the quest if you defeat all the monsters. That is why a 4-man party with at least one ranged player is advised, but he wanted to do it by himself. Shin asks if he's nervous about it, as she wasn't talking, so he got worried a bit. If she thinks it is too hard for just her, they can wait for more people, maybe a tank or something. Miso immediately grabs his hand and accepts the quest, as it is no trouble at all. With that, they get teleported away, the employee hoping that nothing happens to Shin, but the players around wonder if they can succeed. Most disagree, as there's no way a level 17 noob can do anything in such a dungeon, but some argue that Miso had something in mind. She's the youngest A+ ranked player after all. She's not dumb. Do they know about the new ranking system that the Player Association created? The one made because it was hard to determine how strong a player was based on level. There are two criteria for getting assigned a rank. The first is the number of dungeons one has cleared, and the second is the overall battle sense of a player. Miso was ranked A+, solely because of her battle sense. Most get that, but they do not get what A+ even means. It's pretty obvious, but it simply means that there are monsters far above her who are stronger than two Misos at once. But that's not the important bit here. That guy had the fortune to go into the dungeon with her. So, all in all, he's pretty damn lucky. They arrive at the defense quest, the Age of the Night and Wolves, where Miso gets prepared to help Shin, as she will take responsibility for what she said. But she hopes that he takes this as a chance to learn his lesson. 30 minutes ago, he told her to not get involved unless he clearly asks for her help, and as long as she focuses on supporting him, he promises a 5% cut. Miso is surprised she's not just hearing things, and Shin knew that 5% was pretty dangerous for just some support. Miso was not referring to the terms. There was no way he could handle all of this. There are at least 300 enemies below. This was a difficult quest, even for a level 100 like her. Shin just told her to wait and see, and she reluctantly agreed, but for every monster he missed, she would get 1% more. The wolves approach Shin, and he apologizes to Miso, as there is no way she's getting more than 5%. He will be taking all these oversized mutts down. He charges into them and begins killing one after another, enjoying the sound they make when they die. Miso is pretty amazed. This means that he's not just an ordinary arrogant player. There were no flaws in his strikes, and his stance supports his superior reach. This is what she learned from Jinho, a perfect balance of offense and defense. But on top of that, he avoided pointless movements and struck a few with just one strike. Unfortunately, he still has to improve, as there's just way too many of them. They are not monsters a level 17 player can handle. However, as she looks closer, she notices something, which was bugging her from the start. All of the monsters are motionless, meaning that he used a stun. She leans so much that she almost falls off, but still, not anybody can just use stun. Even though he's being conservative, that stun lasted for 4 seconds at least. If that's the case, he will have more than enough resources to kill all the wolves? Just who is this guy? As he continues to fight, a bunch of wolf corpses fly towards him. As his main opponent has finally arrived, the black wolf who screams out in anger. He has never faced this beast in the past. He wonders why he feels nostalgia upon seeing it. Because of it, he gets under the effects of a debuff and a stun, which reaches Miso too, but she gets protected by her artifact. She completely forgot the black wolf could do such a thing, so she swiftly draws her bow and prepares to strike, as there is no way for him to get out of that stun swiftly. Shin uses recovery, allowing him to move once again, and amazing Miso, who is getting one surprise after another. Even the black wolf is shocked, as he did not expect his prey to move once again, and this moment of panic gives Shin enough time to deal a critical strike, although he got dirty because of it. Since he's already muddy though, he should go and have some fun. Miso is amazed, and wonders who this guy even is. The defense quest is basically over with, and Shin gains a bunch of levels along with the no fear trait, which allows him to ignore any status caused by a wolf-like monster, but this is ignored if it's a boss. He looks at Miso, who he thinks is starting to believe in his skill, as she was full of contempt watching him clear the stage. Since the show is basically over, how about he just starts the finale? He hopes that she is ready. The final boss is the full moon wolf lord, who attempts to strike, but Shin dodges and remembers that irregular attacks are this monster's specialty. In 30 years, all of his attack patterns have been analyzed over and over, so he's sorry, but he knows every single move he will make. Even if he strikes him, Demon Bash has not activated because of his resistance, which Shin expected. Miso thinks that this is insane. Not only does he have a stuff skill, but can also handle that sword like he's holding a feather. The Wolf Lord tries to bite him, but Shin sidesteps, making the Wolf Lord strike him with his hand, but Shin just blocks it, as he knows everything already. The worst thing for Miso is that he keeps putting up that attitude to prove his strength, making her wonder about his true identity even more. The battle continues more than Shin thought, and he's out of cool tricks to show Miso. Although the boss should be tired by now, it's still filled with energy. At this point, he's going to pass out before him, and his HP is low too. But suddenly, the boss uses a pattern he recognizes. He is using a strong attack to bait a counter, so that he can then go for a piercing attack. This pattern took the lives of many players, and even though he has not used that yet, now it's the perfect opportunity to test it. He cuts the hand of the Wolf Lord, but this allows him to strike Shin with his other arm, completely annihilating him. Miso falls on her knees as if she's an idiot. Even if Shin showed incredible strength, she let her guard down and allowed this to happen. She apologizes for him, but suddenly, a green light envelops the entire area. When he absorbed the Shield of Coodness, he got the Sacrifice special effect, which allowed him to turn all the damage dealt to a specific body part into health. He could choose any body part, and it was really specific. He thought at first that the back would be the safest, but that's divided into 4 pieces, so the only right part is the front, which allows him to fully heal up. He knows that if he was a little off, he would have died. But what's more, is that by cutting the Wolf Lord's arm, he successfully went through his arm. With that, he is allowed to cut the Wolf Lord up, and Miso approaches him, noting that he should have told her about the healing skill, as she thought he was gone. Is he living his second life or something? How did he know the Wolf Lord's attack patterns? He's the first player who has stunned her like this. It's as if, before she can finish, Shin looks at her and asks what it is. Miso feels the pressure in the air, and she meant to say that it was as if she was watching a rancor. Shin thought she was going to say that he regressed, but of course she would not think so far ahead. Miso tells him to finish the Wolf Lord up, which he forgot to do, as he was going to die from the bleeding anyway. With this he gains the face-off title, which is useful in a 1 versus 1, as it gives his stats a 20% increase. Miso sees that he got a title, and he asks if she has soloed this stage before. She confirms at first, but then notes that she only managed because of her artifact. Although Shin believes choosing the right artifacts is also a skill. She thanks him for the compliment, but she doesn't say that her artifact cost around 200 billion won. Comparing herself to him is disingenuous. She suggests that he tests out the effects of his title, which makes it activate, as she was requesting a duel, but he denies the offer. She goes first, as she has to call her porters in order to help move all the loot, which he thanks her for. Shin knows that he made a good impression on her, and before leaving she also gives him her 5% of the quest reward. Even if it seems unfair, she's sure they will work again in the future. So this is an investment. Shin is fine with that, but he gets to move on to the main reason he came here, the Blue Moonstone Platinum Artifact. Finally, after so many years, he got a Platinum Artifact. With this, he can finally buy an apartment in Seoul. The Goddess of Luck asks if he now feels the sensation of winning thanks to her, but Shin doesn't believe she did anything. This is all thanks to his life. Suddenly, another constellation appears, the one with ripped lips, who raises objections about his luck. The player system has proposed to banish the Goddess of Luck, but she requests the constellations connected to the player system to vote on the matter, and even puts up a vote to banish the one with ripped lips, which steadily rises in number until he is banished forever. Shin forgot how popular she is, but anyway, since this is a platinum artifact, he should be able to absorb 40% of its stats, and also its special effect, the Age of Dogs and Wolves, which besides giving him regeneration while the moon is up, any dog or wolf-like monster is permanently stunned when he is near. This means that he will be invincible against them. After he is done synchronizing, he leaves the quest area, only to find a lot of people around him who are amazed that he completed the dungeon alone, which Miso told them about. The employee who rejected him worries, but Miso tells her not to worry, as nobody in their right mind would allow a level 17 in a level 100 quest. She did the right thing, although they should take a closer look at Shin. Before he can say anything, he gets bombarded by recruitment offers from all kinds of guilds, but Miso goes in front of him, as he has something to talk about with her, doesn't she? Shin agrees only to get out of this mess, and they drive away in a limo, just in time for Shin to get paid. Glad to see that the rewards come quickly. Miso explains that it's thanks to the porters, although she did her part too. Shin thanks her for taking care of it, and tells her driver to switch to secret mode, which shuts all the entrances in steel. Shin knew there were hidden motives behind her kindness, but she doesn't mean anything insidious. She just wants to invite him into the Eden Guild. Shin thinks that this is more confidence than anything on her part, but she notes that the Eden name doesn't mean just anything. He would lie if he said he did not expect this. Until he regressed, he was just an ordinary guy, and being a part of something gave him a sense of security. It was a small guild that took in talentless people with nowhere to go. It was comfortable, but everything changed when that incident happened. And with how fast he's growing, no matter how good their structure is, a guild will just be a restraint. For now, it's probably best to go solo. So he apologizes. Miso knows he's going to start a one-man guild, which Shin can't deny, but he's surprised she knew. She notes that she's the daughter of a corporation chairman, and considering his skills, it's not hard to guess. What matters is that she's the only one who knows the facts now. Shin is surprised she's still laying her cards down. She's creating a relationship she can profit from in the future. She's really a skilled negotiator. Inside of the player town near Jamsil Station, Shin is in the process of buying an apartment. with a deposit of 100 million won, and the rent being 5 million per month. Shin is surprised she said such a steep price with a smile, but she notes that this is a pretty good deal. She leaves him to enjoy it, and he thinks that he got a place pretty fast. Perhaps this is the goddess of luck too. Honestly, the time he spent here was short, but so much has happened. The mysterious regression, it left him wondering what to do, how to move forward. But he suddenly felt a feeling long forgotten, blood rushing through his veins. The power of youth. These veins would not let him lead a peaceful life, so he decided to live different and swore to never be a coward. Besides that, he also got opportunities for growth, as is called Park Jungmin from the Player Journal, which gave Shin even more exposure. As Shin left, Miso also invited him to explore an unidentified gate, as they are forming a free team to do it. Shin immediately agreed, surprising Miso, but he has been waiting for a while to do this. A dungeon is a fixed location. It follows a set routine every time, but a gate is constantly shifting. The entrances move in real time, and even monsters change. It's a higher risk for sure, but there are better rewards too. And a first clear bonus guarantees a high-grade artifact too, something like Miso's artifact. Before he really left, she gave him her phone to write his number, but she forgot to unlock it, allowing him to stare at her background, which is 2 memorials. She apologized for doing this, as she's a klutz sometimes. Shin could have asked what the story was, but all players have stories. Hell, even he has one that he could not tell anyone. This makes him wonder about the model student, and hope that at one point he will show his face. In the VIP room of the Eden Guild, a man tells Miso that he waited to catch up over coffee with her for a while, but it seems like she's eagerly awaiting some messages. Miso confirms that she's talking with Shin. They are preparing a gate together. The man notes that she probably fell for him, but wasn't he the one who could stun longer than he? He also turned down her offer to join the guild, and Miso tells him that he should start getting nervous if that's the case, as his swordsmanship is high level too. The man thinks that she's going a bit far with that. Comparing them now is a bit much. This is Jo Jin Ho, a level 700 S-rank player. The next day, at the Jamsil training grounds, Shin gets a call from Miso, who wonders if he can talk, as it's about the gate. He confirms as such, and she explains that an unidentified gate just appeared 500 meters northwest of Chunui Station. They have already done a preliminary scout of the middle, and she shared the internal info just now. Shin goes to check it and sees that the second mid-boss is a Cerberus. He only just got this new skill. He can't believe his luck, considering he's basically invincible against dogs. He thanks her for the heads up, but she feels it's only right and hangs up. Suddenly, someone appears and notes that he called him, and yet he's talking on the phone. Shin apologizes to the team leader, but Daekyung is just joking. Since he's a celebrity now, he should be understanding, right? Shin denies any claim of fame. He still has a long way to go after all, but judging by his words, Daekyung guesses that he has not gotten that call just yet. Shin is confused, so Daekyung shows him an article on the Player Journal, the top one, and it's about him. Shin is very surprised. It's not like he did not want to be in articles, but do they usually post without even talking to the person they are posting about? Since his phone is getting bombarded with calls, Daekyung guesses he's getting tons of calls from extended family, but Shin notes that it's only his cousin-in-laws for now at least. Shin lets this go for now, as they must be talking about the important bit. Before that though, Daekyung remembers that he wanted this, right? Shin is very thankful for what he just received, but Daekyung is not giving it for free. This is a bag full of old artifacts he used, making him wonder why Shin doesn't just buy new ones. But Shin just makes an excuse about resolve or something. He plays it off by saying that it's like some kind of superstition, since he can't reveal what they are really used for. Before they can talk more, a woman joins them, apologizing for being late, as she had a hard time parking around the mountain, but they should begin the appraisal right away. Shin asks who this is, and Daekyung introduces her as the appraiser who will help with the transaction. He brought her so that he won't lowball him just because they are acquaintances. The appraiser gets right to her job, completing it in only a few minutes. With this, she confirms that the original price is a fair one. Daekyung is kinda sad about the news, but whatever. Before they part ways, he wants Shin to look at his swordsmanship. Shin refuses, as he's not qualified for that, but Daekyung tells him to stop being humble. He's not dumb enough to not realize that he's above him, and he will also not let pride get in the way of learning. Shin hates annoying stuff like this. However, he can see Daekyung's sincerity, so he cannot just ignore him. He tells him to go ahead, and also tells the appraiser to step behind him for a bit. With that, Daekyung begins swinging around his blade. Shin is impressed. He has grown since they last fought together. He probably did not stop training at all, however. Something is wrong. Shin calls his name and asks if something happened to his left arm, as he's moving it weirdly. Daekyung asks how he knew that, but Shin just observed. When he swings with his right, his left shoulder opens up. It feels like he was conscious of that side. Daekyung pouts, but he is right. He has some trauma about blocking with that part. Most of the injuries he has taken during mock training or dungeons have happened on this side. He can't really fix it either. Shin denies such a thing. Trauma to the body is much easier to handle than one would think. He shouldn't hide the part of his consciousness and choose a bold style of swordsmanship that reveals his true self. For example, he can just grip and squeeze harder, even though it hurts at first. He should just hang in there. The appraiser sees this scene and wonders what these two are doing. At this point, what is she even looking at? It seems that this scene has awoken a new passion in her. Inspiration comes from the weirdest places after all. As Shin drives back, he thinks that even though this cost him 400 million won, it was a good deal, as the benefits he will gain will be worth it. Even though Da-kyung seemed satisfied with the lesson he gave him, the appraiser began acting pretty weird by the end. Well, whatever. He wants to hurry up and consume the artifacts to see what kind of progress he can make, but he also needs to fill his time with something until the next gate appears. Suddenly, someone appears in front of his car, forcing him to slam on the brakes. He asks if they're okay after they are done, but the fat one slaps his purse on the car roof and says that he was tired of waiting for him. Also, he should get out of the damn car while he still has some patience. Shin is confused, and the fatty's lackey notes that it's always the dumb ones who don't react. The fatty unleashes one of his spells and asks, does he want to burn inside that car of his, or get out? Shin finally remembers who they are, Choi Young-cheol and Cho Seong-ho, of the Utopia Guild. Young-cheol specifically only picks on people weaker than himself, and Seong-ho is his little lackey, shooting the videos for him. Thanks to this extreme content of his, he had a few loyal followers who would always click on his videos, but at one point, he crossed the line and got a life sentence. In other words, they are the worst kind of filth the world has ever known. Grifters. He did say that he wanted to see what kind of progress he made with the artifacts, but not on lackeys like this. Shin gets out of the car, wielding his blade, and asks what they will do now, but Young-cheol tells him to calm down, as he has some things to explain. He is the security force in this town, and a lot of people are complaining about a bastard driving around in an awful car. To put it simply, they are pissed off to see his granny car every day. Shin is shocked by what he just did. He doesn't even hear Young-cheol blabbering on anymore. The people on the street can't believe those two bastards are at it again, but one of them recognizes Shin as the one who appeared in the Player magazine and did a mission with Miso. Seong-ho finds this out too. Besides going on a mission with Miso, there are rumors that he cleared a level 100 quest on his own. Young-cheol doesn't believe such baseless rumors, and Miso probably carried him on that mission too, giving him a killer video title. Let's teach the newbie Miso carried a true lesson. Young-cheol feels merciful today, so they should do it like this. They will go into training mode and have a one-on-one match. If he wins, he leaves the player town immediately. If he somehow wins, they will ignore him from now on. Deal? Shin agrees, but he wants more. 500 million and the stuff on his wrist. If he doesn't like those conditions, he can leave before he gets mad. Young-cheol gets mad, but Seong-ho tells him they don't have a choice, as the chat is going crazy right now, all of them pushing him to do it. Shin asks if he will, or is he too scared for such a thing? Young-cheol knows that if he goes with this, the video will not be monetized since it contains violence, but he will take it as some stress relief if that's the case. They go to the Layer Town Plaza, where the passerby watch as the two put each other in training mode, and Young-cheol notes that just like they said, 500 million and their wrists on the line, and he should not worry, as he keeps promises. He shouldn't beg for mercy if he loses though, as that will be shameful. With the training mode set up, Shin lets out a sigh of relief, and as Young-cheol monologues, he charges in, vowing not to forgive him even if he begs. As Miso turns on her TV, she sees this happening. She wonders what is going on, but then notices Young-cheol talking crap, recognizing him, as he acts though since his uncle is the guildmaster of the Utopia Guild. A woman suddenly arrives and asks what's wrong. Why is she frowning so badly? This is Shin Terry from the Eden Guild, level 700. She then recognizes Shin on the TV. Isn't that the guy she's trying to recruit? Miso confirms as such, but she doesn't know why he appeared on such an awful stream. Terry is pretty impressed by his moves, as he's making Young-cheol dance around to his blade strikes. Having had enough, he unleashes an attack directly in Shin's face, but he easily swings it away with his sword, before cutting it up, creating a large explosion. Seong-ho and the viewers are shocked, but Shin is extremely happy, as at least his body is moving exactly how he wants it to. 3 hours earlier, he thanked the appraiser for wrapping up the deal swiftly, but she found it to be no bother. They worked very hard together after all. Da-kyung suggested they go have a drink. Naturally, he will pay, since he's got some cash now. Shin apologized, as he had to head out, but Da-kyung didn't want him to, and guessed that he asked too much for the artifacts. He would give some money back if that is the case. Shin explained that he really had plans after this, So Daekyung invited the appraiser, but she then remembered the totally real appointment she had in like half an hour. With that, she dashed away from the scene, and Shin waited until he was alone and began consuming the bronze-grade artifacts, giving him a final absorption rate of 90%. He was shocked to see this, and the goddess of luck thinks it's her doing that he's so joyful. Normally, Shin only gets 1/10 of that because of the absorption limits, but as expected, stuff that is handled by people is really a lot better. He also wanted to ask the goddess something. She's pretty famous in the social sphere of the constellations, it seems. By any chance, does she know of a constellation called the Late Blooming Honor Student? She began scolding him for already looking into other constellations, when she's taken such good care of him. Shin understood, but that constellation really meant something for him. It's only natural for her to be mad, though. The goddess of luck felt pity, and decided to look into that constellation as an act of generosity. With that done, he could begin the real feast, and from the various items, he received the top 5 real men's foods. Shin expected some shabbier food since the artifacts were pretty worn out, but this is probably because of the 90% absorption rate. Once he finishes them all, he will be stronger than ever before. Now, he activates his true dual title, giving him a massive boost in stats. Young Cheol is obviously panicking and charges in with all that he's got. Miso is fearful for him, but Terry tells her to relax, as he will definitely dodge that. Shin hopes that he did not forget about their deal. For 500 million, he will be taking his arm too. Seong-ho smiles as he has finally caught him. Suddenly, an icy trap surfaces below Shin, making Young Cheol smile, as he has caught him like a rat. The conditions have been met. On Shin has been activated the Force Freeze skill, and now, his whole body is being encased in ice. Terry did not expect him to know other magic besides the ignition type, but this is good too. Miso just laughs, as she knows that Shin can use the status cancel effect skill. Now she will see why she wants to scout him so badly. Unfortunately for her, that isn't the case, as Shin is already out of his frozen chains, completely gone. Young Cheol is pretty shocked, as the skill definitely activated. Unless he has the status effect cancel, he cannot escape. Is this bastard really a newbie? Suddenly Shin crashes down on him with all his might, but is mad to find out that training mode has saved Young Cheol. Seong-ho is shocked. The comments are going wild, but one of them has noticed that Shin seems different from earlier. Seong-ho agrees. His vibe is totally different. Just what kind of trick did he use? Tairi guesses that it's some type of awakening skill he just used, but Miso doesn't remember him using something like this. Terry notes that it looks like it's either transcendent or psychedelic. From those black pupils, it's probably the latter. And as far as she knows, taking damage with that skill causes incredible exhaustion. Is he planning to take those guys down without a single hit? Miso doesn't believe that's the case. Again, he never used such a skill while they were together. And besides, it costs a fortune. If that is the case, Tairi guesses it's one of two things. Either he had no reason to use it when they were together, or he didn't have it. More specifically, he found the means to get it in a short time. It seems that the appraiser has made a mistake on one of the items. It should have gone through a potential ability test, as it had a 0.02% possibility of having the psychedelic hidden skill. It's probably nothing though. The chance is incredibly low. If he beats odds like that, he must be chosen by the goddess of luck or something. This ability is like an awakened state. Everything, including his senses, is heightened, but at the risk of extreme exhaustion. Shin wants to make good on the wrist promise they made earlier. Should they turn off training mode to make sure that it goes through? Young Cheol refuses to give up. He let his guard down since this guy looked like a newbie, but he will take him more seriously now. He launches himself in the air to create some distance, but then thinks about Seong-ho, who gave him completely wrong information. If he knew this bastard was strong, he wouldn't have started this. It seems like this other bastard was just spouting nonsense. Shin grabs his head and wants to end this. It's time for them to settle accounts. He shouldn't worry too much. Training mode will make him avoid fatal damage, so he should stay still. Young Cheol throws in the towel, vowing to transfer the 500 million now, which Shin is glad about. But now comes the personal revenge part. He might be confused as to what revenge he's speaking about, but this is why he started the thing in the first place. 3 days ago, at the car center, his repairman did all he could, but explained that he would have to scrap that car soon. It is just too old to last any longer than this. Even if he's attached to it, he has to let go now. That car has been with him a long time. It's probably happy it was able to do so for such a long time. As he looked at the car, tears in his eyes, it spoke to him. It was really happy driving him around everywhere, but now he must live happily without it. Shin screams that this is revenge for his beautiful car, and seeing his rage, Young Cheol cries out and apologizes again and again. Because of the fear, he begins to let out his bodily fluids, leaving him completely humiliated. He has passed out from fear too, repeating the same apology again and again. This is Shin's victory. As everyone hides their nose to not smell what came out of Yongcheol, Seongho wonders what they will have to do now. He's not even talking about their channel. They messed with someone way beyond their level. Suddenly, someone approaches him. It's the Gangdong district administrator from the Utopia Guild, Moon Baek-hyun. He lets Seongho apologize as he looks at what Shin did. Even if he awakened a few short time ago, he was still able to take down a seasoned warrior like Yongcheol. Curiosity overtakes him and he approaches, noting that he came to clean up and compensate him. Can he spare a moment? Shin wants his affiliations and name first, which Baek-hyun did not expect, as that's quite an arrogant attitude. However, he feels it's something else. Composure, these skills and demeanor are way beyond what he should be. With that in mind, he bows down and fully introduces himself. He wants to recruit him after all. He promises the Utopia Guild will cover the compensation, as a little loss is fine if they can create a good relationship with this guy. Shin immediately agrees and gives him his account number as he requests 20 billion won, as 5 seemed low anyway. Baek-hyun wonders if there's any chance for a discount, but Shin says no. If they can't do that, they should just let Yongcheol pay for it. As he walks to his apartment, the media is already at his door, asking him tons of questions about Utopia and Eden guilds, but he completely ignores them and can barely close his door because of the encroaching horde. Shin is tired enough as it is. He doesn't have time for questions about guilds and dating. Now that he's alone though, it's time for him to get ready. The gate Miso proposed is happening today. Thanks to it, the past week's been nothing but chaos, but the results made it all worth it. He has gained a bunch of stats, and Demo Bash also leveled up from the last fight. Combined with the overwhelming impact effect and delay, he can make the stun go over 5 seconds. He's not even done yet, as he also has a proficiency in one-handed sword training, with the full charging mobility skill as a pretty good bonus. With this setup, he's more than ready to conquer that gate. He thinks that there were a lot of frustrating gaps in the last fights. He couldn't fully recreate his past experiences. Against that Wolf Lord, he had to handle due to his attack style limitations, and during the fight with Yongcheol, he got caught easily because he had no mobility skills. In other words, if the opponent had been just a bit stronger than him, he would have lost his life in both cases. He has to keep his head on straight. At this rate, growth or anything else doesn't matter, as he will just repeat the same failures as before. The second collapse that's coming in 2040 is lingering in his mind, but he promised that he will make it turn out differently. He cannot lose everything again. In this life, he will become the strongest, like that person who saved his life. Suddenly his phone rings. It's a call from Young Min, the reporter from earlier. He was calling to tell him that the interview they talked about is today. He wanted to check if he's still able to come. Shin completely forgot, but agrees to come right now. The gate raid is at 7 p.m., and the interview is at 2. He checks the time, only to see that he's barely scraping by on time. The reporters have made themselves comfortable while waiting, but when they see him get out, they choose to take his advice and get out of his way. As Young Min hears a commotion, as Shin has just entered, but he doesn't realize what he looks like until he gets closer. He has quite the intense look. Did he just come out of a dungeon? Shin denies such a thing and thinks that this marathon was harder than any dungeon. He apologizes for being late, but Youngmin says it's fine. Also, he requested this interview because of the quest area incident, but it seems like something has happened in the meantime too. Shin feels that it's no big deal, but Youngmin tells him that this is a massive topic among the other players. They all know rank doesn't always reflect skill, but he's a real exception, to the point that everyone is calling him the legendary newbie. Besides that, tons of guilds are after him too, not just the players. Shin knows well enough. Maybe he's talking about the Eden Guild specifically though. Youngmin wasn't talking about domestic guilds. He was talking about the foreign guilds. The news is fresh, so he probably hasn't heard it yet. But 5 foreign guilds have submitted official player information requests to the Korean Player Association. These overseas guilds tend to scout things early, even from low levels. However, he has never seen them show so much interest in a newbie. He advises caution, as many people have taken an interest in him. Later, Shin goes to the gate manifestation zone, which is in a back alley near Chunui Station, and thinks that he was planning to go solo with his own guild. But the foreign guilds are really tempting. The level they operate on is just too different. And honestly, how badly was he treated in the past by domestic guilds? Eventually, he meets up with Miso, who is glad to see him. But Shin also notices someone behind her, someone he does not recognize. Miso introduces her as her sister, who really wanted to meet him, so she brought her out to see him before the raid. She's also a part of the Eden Guild, just like her. Miso suggests they go to a cafe, but Taeri goes forward and shakes hands with Shin, who is honored to meet her. Even if Miso didn't introduce her, he would have known who she is, as she was a top-tier player with the title of Shadow Assassins. Her fame has already spread far and beyond Korea. She's basically one of the players leading the Eden Guild. Her mere presence is enough to make them the most powerful guild in the country. He's been running into a lot of important people ever since regressing, though. Are they hunting him down? Taeri actually wants a favor from him. It's nothing serious. She just wants a quick spar with him. Miso can't believe it, she just met the guy. Taeri told her on her way here that she will test his skills a bit, but it seems she didn't listen. Miso apologizes for her sister. She has a playful personality, to say the least. Shin actually doesn't mind. In fact, they should do it right here, as it's not every day he gets to spar with a top Korean player like her. Taeri is glad her sister has a good eye for people. She apologizes if her approach was harsh, though, so they should exchange just 5 moves. Shin knows his chances are basically null, but this is a chance to see how far he has come and what he still lacks, even though he already feels like throwing up just by looking at her. This time, he cannot make it easy on himself, so he says that he is ready. All the while, Miso wonders what to even do. Taeri moves in with the first strike, disappearing completely from sight, and even though Shin guesses where she is, his current body can barely react to her attacks. She deflects his blade and jumps up, noting that his movement is pretty good, so she will put more force into her attacks. She uses her second strike, which is a bunch of smaller, swifter attacks, which Shin expected, but he is prepared for this. Just like back then, he was able to read movements through pure sensation and not eyesight. Miso sees him closing his eyes and is confused. Isn't something like this way too reckless? Before the strike can reach Shin, he moves out of the way and counterattacks. Taeri is impressed by his focus, as she did not expect him to block even the following attack. Most swordsmen do not reach that level of concentration in their lifetimes. This is less about talent and more about experience. Shin likes that she's perceptive, and she notes that he moves like a veteran player, which Shin takes as a compliment. With only 3 moves left, Shin wants to ask one more thing before continuing. Instead of 3 attacks, how about she goes all out just once? He knows how this sounds. It's pretty arrogant, but he doesn't think he can afford to let such an opportunity slip by like this. Just once, he wants her to come with everything she's got. Shin knows, if he cannot draw out her full intent, he will not be able to grow, so she agrees, despite Miso screaming at them both. Taeri notes that she can't go 100% serious, so she will do a simple full-speed dash, as skills are difficult to control. Shin is fine with that. Just getting her to take him seriously is a big win. He will treat this like a real fight, because if he slips up, he will die. He will not have time to sense her presence. He has to fully predict her movement before she arrives, and that's exactly what he does, forcing Taeri to use the Shadow Mirage skill. She ends up behind him and accidentally knocks him down with the butt of her blade. They are both worried for him, but he's fine. He just got a little burn from the sheer force of that accidental attack. Shin slowly gets up, but Taeri gives him a hand, apologizing for using a skill. Shin grabs her hand and says he's fine. He even wanted to thank her for taking him so seriously. Taeri notes that she enjoyed herself too, but next time, it would be great if they could have a serious conversation. Shin notes that they can do so anytime, but Miso intervenes, noting that the raid time is getting close. Additionally, she better write everything that happened and submit it to the guild. Taeri apologizes and leaves, hoping that their raid goes well. Whether he likes it or not, Shin has suffered his first loss since regression, but had she gone all out from the beginning, he wouldn't have been able to even do what he did earlier. Although this is not an expected meeting, he has something else to surpass. She gives him one last look, Shin knowing that this means to try his best. They go to the gate, where Miso would like to begin with some introductions. The 2 strangers greet Shin, and he introduces himself. It's a pleasure to meet such experienced players after all. The guy introduces himself as Park Taeseok, a mage specializing in the Ignite skill, and level 120. Shin asks if he means pyromancy, and Taeseok confirms as such. He's in the same realm as Yongcheol. However, he focused all his points and time into mastering his flame, so he's naturally stronger. Unfortunately, he's only at the blue flame stage, but Shin believes he's reliable, as he made a pretty good decision to focus only on one move. The reason why Yongcheol was easy to defeat was because he started investing in a bunch of skills and mastering none. The girl also introduces herself. She's Kong Ju-hee, a mage specializing in space connection and level 110. Since Taeseok showed his powers, she began doing the same, but Miso already told her not to do it, although it's too late now. Shin didn't know what to expect, but it certainly wasn't a portal to another part of the country. She closes the portal and bows to Shin in an introductory manner, although he just wants to greet her normally. He knew Miso was a good candidate for this, as she made the perfect team combination. A close-range swordsman while she is a ranger, Taeseok will cover anything they miss, while Ju-hee will help with the escapes. They are missing a healer, but still, the most important part is that they have amazing team chemistry. It's clear that they worked together in the past, which reminds him of back then too. He would lie if he said he doesn't miss those days. Miso breaks him out of his melancholy and asks if he got injured during that spar, but Shin says he's fine. He was just thinking, they should just enter now. They go in and find themselves in frost hell, and Shin immediately thanks Taesok. If it wasn't for his buff, they would have frozen solid by now. Miso knows the weather wasn't like this when they came here earlier. She also noticed that Shin has another weapon other than his main one. So what's the deal? He brought this smaller sword along in case he enters a mobility-heavy battle. But Miso did not know he's proficient in other weapons too. Shin notes that he just trained hard, not telling her about the rare skill. Suddenly a giant stumbles upon them, and Miso tells Juhi to initiate Plan C. The giant strikes, but they are all above, with Miso and Shin leading the charge. The giant notices them and lunges forth with his club, but Miso and Taeseok use their combined powers to create a flaming arrow that completely blinds the giant, allowing Shin to unleash a bunch of slashing attacks. He calls forth Juhi, who uses her abilities to get him out of the way before the giant crushes him. Unfortunately, it doesn't notice this, allowing Shin to come from behind and surprise the giant. The others prepare to help, but Shin's Demon Bash skill activates, allowing him to deal with the giant easily, to the confusion of the others. Shin lands, and Taesok immediately asks what that was. Their original plan wasn't supposed to end in a single hit. He apologizes, but it's nothing to apologize for. Miso told them already. She had the same reaction when she met him, and this isn't even the best he can do, right? Shin doesn't like that he has to show more now, but still, for their first time working together, they had good synergy. Perhaps this is what it feels like to work with experienced players, but he doesn't have much time for reflection, as it's time for them to go for round 2. After they deal with all the giants, Taesok finds him incredible. He's the best swordsman he teamed up with, ever. Shin awkwardly thanks him, and Miso explains that Taeseok couldn't use his big skills before meeting him, as he lets him spam stuff freely. Shin gets it. It's hard for mages to do anything without a reliable swordsman, but this guy is putting way too much pressure on him. Miso also wants to know what that skill he just used was. She should be used to it, but she was still surprised. While they were clearing the giants, an armored demon ogre appeared, and since it was so powerful, they decided to retreat and focus their firepower on it. But Shin just told Juhi to open a portal right in front of him, leading to the monster. Miso tried to warn him, but saw that he was doing something, so she decided to trust him and let Juhi do what he said to do. With that, he charges in with his skill, and the ogre was too surprised to react, allowing Shin to easily defeat him. Shin explains that it's just a mobility skill he uses every now and again, although now he could do it more because he trusts his team. Suddenly, Juhi tells them to be quiet, as over the hill, the middle boss is sleeping, Cerberus of the frozen hell, as they try to plan out and wonder how to take this dangerous boss. Shin just smiles, as he has the hour of dog and wolf by his side, making this a surefire victory. Miso guesses they are going with Plan F here, but Shin simply gets up and smiles, everyone knowing that this is not good at all. His plan is to just let them watch, which they agree with, but at least they want an explanation. He would like to give it to them, but to activate the special effect of his skill, the moon must be visible, but that would take too much. He charges in, as asking for forgiveness is faster than permission. The Cerberus begins staring at Shin, with Miso thinking that they should provide cover, but Juhi is the first one to see that the monster is acting strangely, like it's frozen in place. Miso guesses it's being cautious, but last time, it went aggressive immediately. Suddenly, it begins moving, with the others thinking they should intervene, but Miso can clearly see that it has entered a submissive stance. Sure enough, the Cerberus has completely submitted to Shin, whom it sees as a higher-ranked being. Shin finds it more cute this way, but he still decides to take care of it, although it did bother him quite a bit. From it, he gains the Having C-rank title, which can cut down one of his skill cooldowns by half. He puts it on recovery, allowing the skill to be used every 30 seconds. Miso comes closer and tells him to wait, which confuses Shin, but that's when the loot spawns. He totally forgot to talk about loot distribution. He's been raiding solo for a long time. Surely though, Miso won't claim it's hers by right or something, right? Miso actually urges him to take it all, as he defeated Cerberus, but before Shin can thank the heavens, he stops himself and asks about the others. Miso shows him that they are all in agreement, which he's glad for. He really has to break this habit of talking about loot though. With that, Miso notes that they will step aside while he does the things. Shin asks what that may be, but she knows that each time he gets an artifact, he does that. It appears that she has known for a while, right after they cleared that quest area. When she was about to leave, she turned around to see what he was doing, and ended up finding his secret. Shin didn't expect this to happen so early. A player's unique skill is their lifeline after all. Fortunately, what Miso was referring to was his little ritual that he performs after getting an artifact. She has heard of players doing this, so he should just enjoy himself. Juhi wonders if he's really like that as she's pushed away, and Shin thinks that this is a huge misunderstanding, but it's better than having his actual ability exposed, so he gets to eat the heart of Frost Gold artifact. After a lot of hard work, especially on Juhi's part, who was told by Shin to do this, they have gathered a lot of ogre corpses in one place, which is supposed to bring the boss to them. Shin tells them not to worry. This boss goes crazy for any kind of meat he can find, but Juhi wonders how he knows so much. After standing plain-faced for a bit, he tells Taeseok to light the fire quickly, completely dodging the question. 20 minutes have passed since they lit up the corpses with nothing showing up, but Shin still has faith that this bait will work. Sure enough, they hear a loud roar coming from a cave, and the boss appears, the fatal boss, Frost Grizzly Bear. Miso knows very well, thanks to Shin's plan, they were able to clear things easily most of the time. However, this situation seems way too dangerous, even for him. A few minutes ago, Shin told them his plan, and that was for him to be the bait all alone. If they want to clear it safely and quickly, this is the best method, as giant beast-type monsters share a common trait, that being a reaction once they lose enough health. In this case, it's the Devour state, which will give the bear enhanced powers and increase his violent nature. They also gain a tendency to eat anything they see, so they stack the corpses as bait. But what if they did something to that bait? With that idea, while Juhi was stacking the bait through the portal, they prepared some juniper wood, which is known for its anesthetic effect, along with the bait. Taeseok realized that the only issue was draining its health enough to enter that devouring state. Shin confirmed that creating an environment where they can deal with that damage more comfortably is challenging, and that's why this is his role. Now Shin kind of regrets his decision, as he's just seconds away from the pearly gates each time this beast strikes. He has grown a lot in power, sure, so the thought he could handle this like a fool, but this beast is stupidly strong. If he keeps going like this, only death will wait for him. So from now on, he must dodge everything. He jumps up on the beast's paw to go behind it and hopefully gain some respite, but the bear immediately reacts, causing him to be defenseless as the hungry beast reaches forward with its jaw wide open. Before he can reach Shin though, a bunch of arrows stop him, and Miso tells Shin to act now. He feels very glad to have teammates like this, as now he can strike back. The bear cannot hope to dodge the incoming strike, which also freezes it. This is the freeze skill he got from that artifact, which he combined with full charging, and he's glad that it works, especially against this bastard. Shin feels more confident, so he strikes again, freezing the bear further. Miso tells Taeseok to do it, and he confirms that this is the biggest spell yet. He screams at Shin to get out of the way and unleashes a flame of amazing proportion, making the bear crash with pure force. Shin expects that at this level, they will certainly hit the target threshold. Sure enough, the grizzly begins to transform, entering its devouring state as Shin smiles. But Miso finds it weird, as the bear looks much more menacing than it should, which Shin also recognizes. He can only hope Juhi moves fast enough. Taeseok looks at the beast below, and Miso asks what Juhi is doing, but it seems that she's still getting ready. Focus is the only thing on her mind now. The other two hope it won't take long though, as Shin might not be able to hold out for long. As he runs away, he thinks that he's really going to die if something doesn't happen, but with the bear descending upon him closer and closer, he decides to charge head-on using his psychedelic skill. At the same time, Juhi gathers enough mana and opens the portal right in front of the bear, sucking him in instantly. She immediately falls to her knees, with Shin glad that she managed to do it, as his attack was nothing more than a fluke. The bear is happily chewing down on the poisoned corpses in front of him, with Shin being happy that this all worked out, although this was too close for comfort. After a bunch of easy attacks, the grizzly is completely defeated and left to bleed out, which does not take long. Miso congratulates Shin for working so hard, but he insisted on it, so it's fine. He gains a bunch of levels thanks to this win, but this dungeon was way too rough. Juhi also arrives and congratulates everyone, apologizing for not being able to do enough. Shin thanks her for going on with his rather reckless plan, but she feels that she learned the limits of her abilities, so it's fine. Shin is grateful that his teammates followed his plan like this, but even if they hadn't, he would have pushed through to the end anyway. The gates he faced in his past life were always tragic. The average survival rate of the gate he sought for its good rewards was 90%. Since this was a raid filled with non-amateur members, everyone thought that they wouldn't have any casualties, but that 10% death rate always has to hit someone, and it just hadn't struck him. Growth is important in a player, but if there's one more goal in this second chance of his, it's to prevent any unnecessary deaths. With that out of the way, they can finally check out the reward they got, which is a first-time special reward, which will give all the players an item once they reach in. Shin goes first, but suddenly the goddess of luck takes his hand and notes that now he will see her true power. This gets Shin even more hype, and sure enough, he is rewarded with a unique grade artifact, which he can choose from. This is truly amazing, but it goes even further than that, as thanks to the goddess, artifacts of unique grade or higher will have their hidden effect unlocked and inherited immediately. The goddess hopes that he can see her power now, which he most definitely can. Since the others are all busy choosing their rewards, there's no need to hesitate. He goes for the Great Sword of Fighting Spirit, which immediately manifests in front of him. This blade has 500 attack, plus 100 strength, and the hidden effect of knockback burst. Shin grabs his new weapon, but it immediately falls to the ground, making him wonder what's happening with the lightweight effect. He begins reading it thoroughly, but upon looking closer, he sees that the same type of artifact effect cannot be applied multiple times. Miso asks if something is wrong, but he denies it, noting that it's just some hiccups. He is glad to see that everyone found satisfying rewards suited for them, which he's to thank for. Shin believes he did not do much, although Miso notes that it really is all thanks to him. They discussed it a bit, and they feel like they should give the byproducts of the fight, like the boss corpse and magic stones, to him. Shin tells them not to go that far, but Juhi notes that they already calculated everyone's contribution, so this much is the least they can do. Shin covers his eyes, as he cannot believe his teammates would think of this. Just the monster corpses alone are worth 600 million. With the added byproducts, it's easily 1.5 billion. Truly, this is way too good to be true. He almost can't hold back his laughter. After getting out of the dungeon, Shin refuses to go somewhere to eat, as he's quite tired, and also wants to check the results of what he got. Before Miso leaves though, she asks Shin if they can speak casually from now on. He can't really tell her that he's an old man, and that would be disrespectful, so he agrees, leading to Miso calling him Appa. This takes Shin by surprise, as it's been quite some time since he heard something like that. Meanwhile, Juhi and Taiseok, who heard all of this, think that something is definitely going on with Miso. Shin goes to the back alley behind Chunui's station and absorbs his old sword so he can use it on his new one. It didn't give him much in terms of stats, but at least it tasted good, and with this sorted he can finally check what he got. He is now level 51. He gained a bunch of stats in strength and agility, plus the knockback burst skill, which uses mana to knock an enemy backward. Finally, he got the Clever Hunter title, which recovers 1 HP by absorbing blood whenever he defeats a small or large enemy. He is very satisfied with this, as it's a lot of growth all in one session, and to boot, he puts all his remaining stats into luck, giving him a critical range of 120 or 600%. As he celebrates and vows to catch up to the greats soon, a mighty portal opens behind him, letting out 3 new constellations that would like a contract. The King of Lions is interested in his swordsmanship. The Bearer of Beauty and Flame gives high marks to his fighting spirit, and the Dark Hunter equates his presence here, almost as if he does not belong. The Goddess of Luck is glad some good constellations showed up this time. It seems that her investment is skyrocketing. Shin certainly didn't expect another visit like this, but it's probably because he has some insane growth, and the Goddess of Luck being social certainly did help. First, he needs to assess each candidate well. The King of Lions and Bearer of Beauty and Flame are pretty amazing, as they are real-life heroes who ascended to constellation status. The real reason they are such a pain is that they both act like grumpy old men, who take everything one does as pure disrespect towards them. Besides them, the last candidate is really dangerous, the Dark Hunter. This is the last person a player wants to encounter, as she constantly monitors the dimensional bands in real time and roams around, tracking players who receive excessive benefits from system glitches. She is like a bounty hunter who targets players who are committing foul play. In his previous life, there was an infamous case with her. She harassed a player who signed a dual contract until he broke. It appears that none of these constellations are worth it, even if signing contracts is important. It's definitely a decision that changes the rest of a player's life. But right now, just having the Goddess of Luck is enough, meaning that if he waits just a bit more, maybe someone even greater might come along. A divine seat. One can count the players who contracted with one on their fingers. They are mythic existences. He's not a gambling man, but he has no choice now. Shin refuses to take on any constellation, with the 2 grumpy old men being grumpy old men and storming out. But before leaving, the Dark Hunter warns him that one day she will find out what his secret is. Shin finds this really tiring. He wanted to avoid this, but alas, it's not up to him. He checks the time to see if he still has time, and sure enough, he does. The monsters that will appear in the next night are a group of dog-like kobolds, just like Cerberus. They are affected by time of dog and wolf, meaning that they are easy targets for him. This is his 3rd run today. It won't be easy, but he will try until a divine seat takes interest in him. The quest area is near Jamsil Station, and at the Player Association Rift Management Bureau. A worker there gets informed that a rift appeared at Byong Station, and she immediately signals all personnel to mobilize. but it seems that someone is already fighting there. The woman who made the phone call notes that a player is already there, and he's fighting the monsters all by himself. The bureau worker thinks it's too dangerous, but the woman doesn't really think so, as he's smiling while killing the monsters. The gap between reality was created 11 years ago after the first breakdown. Unlike dungeons or gates, it's an unpredictable disaster where monsters could cross over to their world with ease. The beasts came here to hunt. However, this is not as unpredictable to him. 10 minutes ago, Shin walked up into the station, as he remembered that it was around here. Sure enough, the rift began to form right in front of him. He remembers all of this because this rift was cataloged as a tragedy. It has caused countless civilian casualties, but he's here this time, so that it won't happen. He grew up in an orphanage. That's all he knew from the start, and he does not remember what his parents looked like. Although that was the case, he never really felt depressed about it. However, he knows how sad it is to lose someone, so they will never be forgotten, not even the person who saved him. His objective goes far beyond just getting stronger. Everything he does is for humanity. The hordes of kobolds charge him, but because of the time of dogs and wolves, they do not dare approach him. Even so, it is clearly not showing the same level of results as it did against Cerberus. That is likely because of the moon, as it's been completely covered, so they are not submitting to him fully. That just makes it all the better for him though, as it allows him to test his skills. Shin rushes in with full charging, with his slash seemingly stopping out of nowhere. The kobold smiles, only to realize too late that the real strike was right next to him, as Shin used knockback burst to send them all flying. He's surprised by how far this sent them, and it damaged them pretty well with full charging. This will do pretty well as his first AoE attack, and due to his luck stat, his critical hit range increased, so he's basically always guaranteed a critical hit. Unfortunately, these guys will not die in one blow, unfortunately for them, as he gets to enjoy the carnage. Later, people from the player association arrive in their car and demand to meet the person who called. This is Lee Hyun, a level 110 B rank player. The lady who called tells them where the monsters are, but upon seeing what is happening, his brother, Lee Jung, a level 90 B rank player, notes that they should check that out first. It seems that Shin is fighting the kobold boss, with Lee surprised to see a kobold rift all the way here. They want to charge in too, but Shin refuses to help, as he can take care of this guy by himself. He activates all of his buffs at once while the boss charges, as he wants to see what happens when he uses his AoE attack. The boss is naturally sent flying, right back into the edge of the rift, where he takes deadly enough damage to kill him. The others are shocked, and they even recognize him as Shin Sang-yun. He also recognizes that they are from the association and apologizes for earlier. Lee tells him that it's fine. It's a miracle enough that there were no casualties in a rift of this size. Shin says it's fine, but then Lee guesses he's going in, which Shin was actually going to do. But how did he guess? Lee heard that is what most upper-level players do, but they want to come with him, if that's not much to ask. His brother doesn't know what to say, but Lee vows not to get in Shin's way. They just want to see how he hunts. Shin likes that answer, and decides to let them come with him. It can't hurt after all. With that, they enter the rift, with Shin easily taking out anything that comes his way. The brothers are surprised by how tired he's running. They are out of breath, but they must follow because he has a very good battle sense they must learn from. Lee was proud of his stamina above all else as a player, but that fight they just went through was clearly not easy. 30 minutes earlier, at the rift entrance, they were instantly met with a whole army of kobolds, with archers and everything. Shin immediately put the corpse of one kobold in front of them, allowing them to dodge the incoming arrows, although only by a small margin. Shin thinks that bringing them might have been a mistake, as trying to handle this while worrying about them is not great. But that's just whining. He just has to learn from a situation like this, or he will never reach the high ranks. He sends his blade flying towards one of the shooters and then rushes in, taking the others out with ease. Unfortunately, another boss, like kobolds, chased him away. It's good that Shin reacted in time. If he had zoned out, he would have died against this kobold champion. He didn't expect him to be waiting on the second floor, but he doesn't have time to think about that, as the champion charges in once again. Shin wonders if he can push him back with his knockback burst, so he decides to risk it and try. Somehow though, his sword breaks through the shield and right into the champion's break, surprising Shin, as he did not expect this much damage. Perhaps this is because of the great sword of fighting spirit. Since it's like that, he gets to have a lot more fun. The ones below this floor stop fighting for a second to listen to the incoming screams from above. From all this killing, Shin gets the swift movement boots, which grant triple the movement speed on unpaved ground. Shin immediately equips them, and they automatically refit to his size, making it much more comfortable. It seems like the other two are done with their side too, although barely. As they continue, Shin thinks that this run turned out much more fruitful than anticipated. He has 5 silver, 4 gold, and 1 platinum now, the equivalent of 1.5 billion won, even just from wiping out the kobolds on his way. His health is full because of his clever hunter skill. Suddenly, he sees a door with some very ominous energy around it, something that he was actually aiming for. This is the king's vault, and inside, it's absolutely filled to the brim with riches. Shin crouches down to admire the treasure, allowing the sneaky kobold boss to let out an explosive shot. Shin, however, was expecting another ambush, so he charges in with his blade, only for the kobold to swiftly dodge and prepare another shot. This is the final boss, the dominating kobold king. Shin dodges the next strike, but it was far too close. If he didn't use full charge, he would have died. They both land down, and Shin finally realizes that this opponent is a troublesome one. Lee and his brother charge in, apologizing for being late, but upon seeing them, the kobold king affects them with intimidation, making them unable to move. This, however, allows Shin to move in with a strike, as he's invincible to such petty tricks. The king is visibly surprised, and Shin manages to strike him, but the king is resistant to his demon bash. Shin thinks that this is unfortunate, but looks back at the other two, and thinks that this being is much stronger than the goblin lord he fought previously. He could not get it last time, but he wants it now, the intimidation skill. The king suddenly lets out some dark arrows from his back, and lets them fly toward Shin, who can barely block them. He then jumps up and prepares another barrage, making Shin think that this is pretty unfair. If this wasn't enough, this boss's intimidation has a shorter cooldown than his recovery. If he figures it out, he will certainly die. The only thing he would need right now is a ranged attack, but where could he get one? That's when he sees the treasure next to him and gets an idea. Lee's brother asks if he's okay, with Lee feeling fine. It's just that he has never been hit with this status effect before. They wonder how Shin is fine. Perhaps he has some status cleansing skill. It would not be surprising at all. Suddenly, Lee sees something. The arrows are getting embedded further inside than normal, so he screams at Shin to get out of there, but his fate is sealed as he lands on the coins. The king smiles and lets out an incredible attack that pierces Shin. The king lands down too, having won this fight, but he's shocked to see that Shin is not dead yet, as he has used sacrifice to dodge this attack. With this rebound chance, he activates all his boosts and uses knockback burst on the kobold king, unleashing a flurry of gold coins directly into him. The other two are shocked, especially Lee, who has seen countless players until now, but nobody on such an intense level. The king seems to still be alive, refusing to give up, even with his crossbow gone. Shin likes that. He will finish him off properly. The king screams as he charges in, but is unable to do anything as Shin cuts his blade and then him, ending the fight. Shin wins. For his victory, he gains the C-rank title, Before the Drink Cools, which is a title created by the Bearer of Beauty and Flame based on her memories, and it gives 2 hours of intimidation immunity to all players in a party with him. The Bearer of Beauty and Flame boasts that in her youth, she would take her enemies' heads before her drink cooled. This was taken from the constellation's youth, as she would take the heads of her enemies before her drink cooled. Shin is glad to have this, but what's more, he got what he wanted, an item with intimidation. This is called the Amulet of Despair, which is an accessory that lets out an intimidation aura. He also has the Boots of Evasion, which allow him faster movement if he's going backwards, and the Necklace of Exploration, which senses killing intent from very far away. Shin can't wait to consume all of it, but he will just stash it first, and consume it a little later. Suddenly though, Lee and his brother run toward him and demand that they go now. Shin wonders what they are freaking out about. Everyone knows the rift's close, but that's when he realizes that he will not be able to grab all the precious treasures. The other two drag him out as he screams at the treasure. Outside, the bystanders were waiting for them, and were very glad to see that they managed to defeat the rift, but then saw that the atmosphere is pretty down. Before Shin can even process his emotions, a reporter from the Player magazine shoves a microphone into his face and wants a few words from the hero who saved the station. Inside the S building, Player Town, in an advanced training room, Jo Ihyun, a B+ ranked player, summons 3 B-rank golems, which immediately charge Tyre. She intercepts them with ease, first cutting the hand of the first one before charging in and cutting up the rest with ease, leaving only rubble behind. She thinks that this is the limit of the training simulation. She came here so she could forget that feeling, but honestly, she wants to fight that guy again. They should have exchanged contact info at least. Suddenly, news breaks out about the rift at Bupyeong Station, and that a single player cleared it all alone. Tyre then sees Shin getting interviewed, who really couldn't care less, but she's just glad to see him. The reporter asks who his opponent was, as according to the Player Association, the monster must have been around level 150, right? He's way below that, so it must have been hard. Shin does not deny that levels are important, but it's not the only factor that decides a victory. Tyre thinks he's right. Being able to say that confidently means that he can judge his skill objectively. She has felt this for a while now, but he really is mature. She wonders who his teacher is. He might even have the god of war as his constellation, or perhaps he might be contracted with a divine seat, like she is. The next day at Shin's house, he gets to consuming the artifacts. He sorted through the artifacts he got yesterday, and all of them seem super useful. Must be because of his luck stat. But enough talking. Now he can grow exactly how he wants to. Since the player era began, most swordsmen had only this kind of image, the mold of strength and stamina, and they couldn't escape it. But then, as monsters with varied attacks began to pop up, those who only pursued strength started walking toward ruin. So swordsmen slowly began losing their place. It seemed like that at first anyway. But with the appearance of the sword demon Kyung-soo, the paradigm for swordsmen changed. He discarded their heavy armor to put all his points into agility and replaced defense with evasive maneuvers. In other words, a swordsman who could handle any situation. He was the first all-rounder. Though he never changed his style in his past life because of pride, this life, things will be different. The preparations to absorb the Amulet of Despair, Boots of Evasion, and Necklace of Exploration are complete, and they all give him a bunch of amazing-looking food, which he was looking forward to all this time. There are only 2 dishes though, so what gives? Suddenly the third one appears too, which is the fresh kobold swamp orange larvae salad, a delicacy for the kobolds, but a nightmare for anyone else. In front of Shin's house, a bunch of reporters scream at the city guards to let them inside, as they all have permission. The guards, however, couldn't care less. Their permission was not given officially at all. Shin just looks at this with a sad smile on his face, not even knowing how they got here last time. He opened his window to get some fresh air because he was not feeling well, but seeing all this just makes the sickness come back, so he should forget about what he just ate and rest. Since he doesn't have a plan moving forward, perhaps resting for just one day might be good enough. Suddenly though, his phone rings, and when he picks it up, he is met with the voice of Kim Ji-hye from the player management department. She was the one who stopped him from going alone that time. Shin remembers, but what does she want? She tells him it's nothing serious this time. She just called to award him a nameplate for clearing the rift. Since before all this talk about being a hero and even getting a nameplate by his standards, this is a pretty trivial achievement. That is because compared to all the players who will soon face and prevent future crises, this rift is a drop in the incoming ocean. He decides to decline this reward, but Kim notes that he should at least accept the priority dungeon access he requested before. She's talking about the Silent Ground dungeon. Shin did not expect it to be approved so quickly. The Silent Ground is a dungeon where nearly all the named monsters use the silent status effect. There is also one more thing. On one mission, he talked with one of his only friends, who was staring at his sister's photo again. This was a habit he had, looking at her whenever he finished something, as it had been a year since she had lost her. Shin asks which dungeon she was trying to clear, and he explained that it was the Silent Ground. She was a player who heavily relied on her skills, so when faced with that crisis, there was nothing she could really do. Now though, he would be able to clear it with no issue, but regretting it like this won't bring her back. Unless he could go back to the past, nothing could be done. That is why Shin wanted to go to this dungeon. He wanted to help a friend never have such regrets ever in his life. For this, he purchased a new car, which he really needed. He would have wanted to spend the money on artifacts, but last week, he went to Bupyeong on the train, and he does not want that kind of attention. He also gets a call from Kim to confirm the raid for the Silent Ground, and he says that he's on his way. Shin sighs and thinks that time really passes quickly. He was focusing entirely on his training to review progress, and it's already been a week since he cleared the rift. During this time, he has been itching to try out the new skill he got, but unfortunately, there seems to be a traffic blockage right in front of him. It's going to take some time for the road to clear. Did a rift open or something? Actually, it did, and what he sees amazes him. Dokyung-so is there too. This is dungeon number 21, at the Yawido intersection. The fans cheer for Kyung-soo, and a reporter notes that he's still insanely popular. Does it feel good to be loved by so many people? He says that it's an honor, while not really caring at the same time. The reporter sees this and asks how he feels about the incoming dungeon raid to change the subject. Kyung-soo notes that it's always the same. He just cuts down monsters. That's basically everything. The reporter is smitten by his looks too, and ignores everything that he has done up until now. Suddenly though, her assistant sees Shin in the car waiting, who did not want to show himself, but got distracted. The media instantly begins taking this further, noting that this is a meeting between gods and mortals, and Kyung-soo's assistant tells him about Shin. He's the one who soloed a rift a while ago. He heard he had a sword style similar to his too. Kyung-soo knows, and he smiles. The reporters ask Shin why he is here. to meet the legendary Kyung-soo and challenge him. Shin denies that. He just came here by coincidence. He really has somewhere to be. So how can he get out of this mess? Upon looking at Kyung-soo though, he sees that he's smirking. Regardless of what he meant, he's glad he saw this. Watching him like this only reminds him of how much he has to go. Kyung-soo notes that he should go inside, thinking that he has met promising players in the past. But this one's different. He's not looking at him with determination, but as a challenge to surpass. He is sure that someday, they will meet again. Later, Shin arrives at the Silent Ground dungeon, still thinking about Kyung-soo as he was standing there, but saw no opportunity to strike. Still, this made him even more determined. But his determination is interrupted by someone screaming at Kim, who notes that it was their turn to clear the Silent Ground. Why is Shin first now? He approaches and asks if there's an issue, with the woman noting that it's perfect timing. Is it not going too far just because he's popular now? Even players need to follow decency rules. Shin is glad that it was today. He was not sure because he had a fuzzy memory, but this is the day when his friend's sister died. He never imagined she would have his personality, though he was a pretty humble guy, but there's no need to hold back anymore. He asks what the deal is. Even if she's upset, she shouldn't take it out on him. As he followed the schedule of the association, there is no issue. With that, he heads straight into the dungeon, while the sister tries to tackle him as her teammates hold her back from it. Upon getting inside, Shin is met with a stench of rot, which is only natural, as most monsters here are undead, and not the preserved kind. The one that came from below grabs his hand and inflicts silence for 0.5 seconds, but he swiftly takes it out. This prompts a bunch more undead to pop out of the ground and charge him, meaning that he won't be able to use his skill anymore. Apparently, this is a gate that is all about fundamentals, which he is very confident in. In the Korea Player Association Scout Team 4 strategy meeting room, a group of suited individuals gathered around a long table while one person stood at the head, presenting information on a screen. The female presenter announced to the gathered team that the next player they needed to discuss was Shin Sang-yeon, whose image was simultaneously displayed on the large screen behind her. An older man seated at the table reacted to the news, observing that Shin Sang-yeon was the infamous child who reminded people of Kyung-soo, and who had made quite an impression. The man then expressed surprise that Shin had only awakened his abilities a month ago, after previously working as a porter. An Ik-hyun, the Scout Team 4 team leader for the Korean Player Association, crossed his arms and observed that Shin was the player that the brothers Lee Jung and Lee Hyun constantly praised. A team member with glasses confirmed An Ik-hyun's assessment, stating that Shin was indeed the one being discussed, and had recently been garnering attention from the public. An Ik-hyun then observed that while Shin's rate of growth was clearly unparalleled compared to other players, he doubted the player should be considered a very special case, given the existence of individuals like Kim Mi-so, Shin Tae-ri, and Do Kyung-soo. Shin Min-jae, the Scout Team 4 deputy team leader for the Korean Player Association, agreed with An Ik-hyun's assessment. Shin Min-jae clarified that while there were always players who displayed incredible rates of growth, and the way Shin handled the recent rift on his own should be assessed highly, they still needed to be conservative when discussing his accomplishments without being able to accurately identify how dangerous the situation truly was. Deputy team leader Shin Min-jae suggested that Shin might have been simply skilled at manipulating the media, but the person seated across the table swiftly interjected, declaring that she did not believe that was the case. Observing the exchange, another team member noted that this was the 100th time that Lee Ga-hee had objected to the deputy team leader's thoughts, and on top of that, she had even cut him off before he could fully finish his statement. The deputy team leader, Shin Min-jae, reacted to the disruption with visible anger before ordering everyone to be quiet. Team leader An Ik-hyun addressed the presenter, asking Lee Ga-hee if she had something she wanted to share. She responded by apologizing for cutting him off, but asserted that Shin was a player she had been keeping track of personally. She is the leader of Scout Team 4. Lee Ga-hee stepped to the front of the room, stating that she had been collecting data on Shin Sang-hyun for the last couple of days. She informed the team that it would take some time to look through all of the information she had gathered, but insisted that this was the only way they would be able to truly understand that Shin was no ordinary player. Lee Ga-hee directed the team's attention to the screen, explaining that the current display showed the typical growth chart of an ordinary player, adding that they had set the chart's parameters to the level they assumed Shin Sang-hyun had already reached. Lee Ga-hee then used a remote device to change the display, presenting what she announced was Shin Sang-hyun's projected growth chart. This new chart clearly showed a vastly different, more dramatic rate of increase compared to the ordinary player's chart, visibly shocking the members of the meeting. Deputy team leader Shin Min-jae, still reacting to the projected growth chart, immediately declared that the data was impossible, then confronted Lee Ga-hee directly. He asked her what she thought she was doing, and if she had lost her ability to objectively determine the skill level of the players she was assigned to review, sharply reminding her not to forget her role as a scouter. Deputy Team Leader Shin Min-jae directed the team to consider the number of skills and titles displayed on the chart, which showed 11 skills and 7 titles. He then pressed Lee Ga-hee for confirmation, stating that, at that rate, she was telling the team that Shin was matching the growth rate of the sword demon Dokyeong-soo. Lee Ga-hee firmly stood by her data, stating that her conclusion was arrived at after an objective review of the information, and there was no denying it. She further asserted the validity of her assessment by revealing that she had personally met all of Shin Sang-yeon's past dungeon allies. While questioning one of Shin's past, bulkier allies about the existence of any odd characteristics of Shin Sang-yeon, Lee Ga-hee received the response that there were 2 things many people would likely consider strange about the player. Lee Ga-hee requested that the ally focus more on Shin's skills, battle sense, and presence on the battlefield. The ally immediately responded with enthusiasm, declaring that Shin's skills were incredible, and that he had never seen anyone use stun like that before. The bulky ally continued the conversation, noting that if Shin's skills were the only remarkable thing, he wouldn't be considered special. The ally then explained that the reason Shin was special was his natural combat sense, as an image of Shin effortlessly fighting shadowy figures flashed into the narration. Lee Ga-hee questioned 2 of Shin Sang-yeon's younger and more energetic allies about his sense of combat, prompting the male ally to immediately declare that Shin's basic training was incredible, which the female ally echoed, agreeing that Sang-yeon was incredible. She asked the young allies if they were saying Shin was merely incredible compared to players of a similar level. The female ally immediately denied that, emphatically declaring that it was nothing like that, and if it were the case, they would not even be talking about him. The male ally elaborated, stating it was hard to fully explain, but what truly differentiated Shin from others was how well trained he was, making it seem as though they were working with a combat veteran who had years of experience. Lee Ga-hee asked the allies to provide a more detailed explanation of their assessment. The male ally elaborated, wondering if it was as if Shin already knew what would happen, and concluded that his sense to predict what the opponent would do next was incredible, as the image showed Shin maneuvering and striking shadowy figures with his sword. The male ally observed that for most people, it was fair to say there were moments when they would show weakness. Lee Ga-hee agreed, confirming that unless they possessed plenty of experience to back them up, an opening or 2 was bound to show. The young ally continued his observation, noting that Sang-yeon wasn't like that. Instead, it was as if Shin's body moved on its own before he even thought about what to do. She summarized the ally's point by asking if it seemed like Shin had a delicate sense for combat. The male ally enthusiastically confirmed her phrasing, agreeing that it was a perfect description of his well-trained sense for combat. The male ally concluded his thought, stating that no matter what situation Sang-yeon was found in, he already had a solution for it. Returning to the present meeting, Lee Ga-hee began to summarize her findings, concluding that the characteristic that differentiated Shin Sang-yeon was an instinct that rivals foresight. She continued her summary, asserting that Shin Sang-yeon's battle sense rivaled most A+ ranked players, and if they included this instinctual foresight into their analysis, she believed Shin had the grounds to be considered an S-rank player. As Shin finishes fighting the beasts, he scoffs, as there are way too many of them. Deputy Team Leader Shin Min-jae, still reeling from the data, expressed his disbelief and questioned Lee Ga-hee on whether she truly understood what it meant to be considered an S-rank. She confirmed that she was well aware. He then demanded further clarification, asking if she was suggesting Shin Sang-yeon possessed foresight and already knew a rift would open, managing to acquire the 7 titles that way. Deputy Team Leader Shin Min-jae, still escalating his disbelief, sarcastically demanded why she did not just claim that Shin had come back in time and regressed. She immediately took the suggestion seriously, finding the idea of regression to be a convincing theory. However, the deputy team leader sharply cut her off. Team leader An Ik-hyun silenced the room, observing that he understood her point that Shin Sang-yeon was not an ordinary player, and therefore starting that day, she was solely assigned to keep watch of Shin. Team leader An Ik-hyun warned Lee Ga-hee that she would be on her own for the time being. She agreed immediately and promised to do her best. Inside the Silent Ground dungeon, Shin walked through the desolate, snow-dusted land, thinking about how much he hated the smell of monster blood, particularly the scent of ghoul blood, which might be even worse. He reflected that this was why he had bought new clothes, noting that because the monsters just appeared out of nowhere, they were hard to deal with. Shin stopped walking and paused in thought, realizing he might have that skill which could address his current situation. Shin then broke into a wide smirk, reflecting that he should have used the ability from the beginning. The skill displayed was Detection, an active support ability that, at skill level 1, allowed him to activate the Eyes of Detection, and before monsters of the same type left a designated area, all monsters within a 100m radius would be marked, and any bosses would be separately marked. Using the detection skill, Shin was surprised to see the large number of remaining monsters marked in the area, exclaiming that he thought he had already defeated most of them, before deciding that he should just skip some of them. While still scanning the area, Shin reacted with a curious, "Huh?" as he noticed a small, fly-like creature marked as an enemy, hovering in the air. Shin looked closely at the fly, questioning whether such a small creature counted as a monster. But the creature suddenly detonated in a brilliant explosion of light and fire. Amidst the fiery debris, Shin reacted with a grunt, identifying the creature as a suicide fly, but was thankful that he reacted in time, allowing him to get away with just burns. If he hadn't, his whole arm would have been torn off. Now on guard, Shin realized that if suicide flies were present, it was likely because a magician-type monster was nearby, and if he did not get away from them, he would be in trouble. Shin's fears were realized as a cloaked figure was shown preparing another explosive attack, while 3 other cloaked figures looked on and let out a chilling shriek. Back at the Player Association meeting, Deputy Team Leader Shin Minjae acknowledged that he understood Lee Ga-hee thought highly of Shin Sang-yun's battle sense, but questioned whether she had acquired any hard data on his skills or titles to support her analysis. Minjae continued, stating that it seemed Shin had unique means to acquire most of his skills or titles, before pointing out to her and asking if he was wrong. Lee Ga-hee responded to the deputy team leader, confirming that she had actually thought about the theory she was about to present, but prefaced it by stating that what she was about to say was just a theory of her own. Lee Ga-hee concluded her statement by warning that on the slight chance her theory was correct, Shin Sang-yun was a player beyond any normal comprehension. At the same time, Shin uses a defensive sword to block the mage's incoming attack, something he predicted. A few days ago, in the underground training room of Player Town Building C, Shin was training adamantly, shown deflecting multiple attacks and creating a brilliant explosion of energy during the fierce session. Shin thought that it had been about 3 days since he started this routine, reflecting that, except for special cases like his ability to consume an artifact, the standard way to acquire a skill was very simple. Shin elaborated on the simple method of acquiring skills, explaining that it involved repetitive labor, and that if one used the widely known guides, acquiring basic passive skills was relatively easy. Shin continued his internal monologue, noting that methods like simple repetitive labor did not work if one wanted to obtain special active skills like full charging. Shin explained that since special active skills required repetitive labor that matched specific conditions, players who discovered these methods typically did not share them to preserve their uniqueness. Consequently, it was nearly impossible to obtain such skills unless it was purely by coincidence. Amidst the ongoing fight, Shin deflected an attack, reflecting that despite the difficulty of obtaining special skills, he was, after all, a pretty experienced player. The cloaked skeletal mages released a chilling screech as they summoned a swarm of small, black flying creatures. As the skeletal mages released the swarm of flies with a chilling rumble, Shin charged toward the explosion, holding his sword ready. As he charged forward, Shin acknowledged that the defensive sword was definitely a good defense skill that he worked hard to acquire, but its biggest drawback was the inability to move forward while using it. A huge explosion engulfed the area, but Shin was immediately seen launching himself out of the fiery smoke, utilizing his momentum to rush directly at the surprised skeletal mages. The group of skeletal undead mages unleashed a chilling screech as they simultaneously cast multiple green glowing inferno spells towards Shin. As the undead mages cast the green inferno spells, Shin plunged through the swirling magic and smoke, meeting the incoming attacks while smiling faintly despite the danger. As Shin unleashed a flurry of swift spinning strikes that shredded the skeletal mage in the foreground, he shouted that it was already too late for the undead enemy. Amidst the dark, rainy environment, a menacing, armored Dark Knight noticed the commotion caused by Shin's actions. As the defeated skeletal mage let out a final screech, a glowing purple crystal materialized in front of Shin, who stood ready with his sword. Shin crouched down to examine the crystal, exclaiming that it was a purple mana crystal, which was a high-grade mana crystal that sold for over 100 million won on average, before happily noting that the rewards were definitely getting better as he entered higher-level dungeons. Shin decided he would pick up the purple mana crystal after he cleared the dungeon, concluding that he should head straight for the dungeon's deepest part. Using his detection skill, Shin scanned the desolate area for monsters as he prepared to continue deeper into the dungeon. Shin reacted with alarm, wondering why his detection showed only one monster, asking where all the monsters that were previously piling up had gone, and finally questioning the whereabouts of that single remaining monster. The armored Dark Knight appeared directly behind Shin, who was already crouched low and looked back in shock at the imposing monster. In that moment of realization, Shin thought to himself that there was something behind him, but it was already too late for him to react. Under immediate threat from the Dark Knight, Shin thought desperately about the direction of the attack, right, left, or below, and swore in frustration, realizing he had no choice but to guess the direction by instinct. Reacting purely on instinct, Shin launched himself into the air, praying that his choice of movement was correct as the Dark Knight's attack surged underneath him. The Dark Knight's powerful attack tore the ground apart, creating massive, jagged purple fissures that forced Shin to exclaim that the situation was crazy as he remained airborne. While suspended in the air, Shin realized why the other monsters had vanished, concluding that the monsters had all run for their lives because the Dark Knight had shown up. Shin recognized the powerful monster as a Death Knight, a creature that annihilates both enemies and allies without distinction or care. The Death Knight charged and plunged downward at Shin. As he engaged the monster, Shin thought he did not know why a monster that should have been in the deepest part of the dungeon had come all the way out to him, but facing the Death Knight directly made him finally understand the situation. Now face to face with the powerful enemy, Shin realized that the Death Knight was the monster who had killed his comrade's younger sister. Facing the middle boss, Death Knight of repentance and rage, Shin roared that he was not letting the event repeat itself in this life, confirming his resolve to change the past as he charged into the attack. Shin and the Death Knight clashed fiercely in midair, creating a powerful burst of light and sending debris and shockwaves tearing through the surrounding environment. Despite intercepting the attack, Shin was immediately pushed back by the sheer force, gritting his teeth in frustration and swearing as he realized that every single one of the Death Knight's strikes was way too heavy. Now facing the powerful foe, Shin identified the Death Knight as an undead-type monster, a knight born from death, and clarified that, to be precise, the monster was the soul of a dead swordsman revived in an immortal body. Shin further analyzed the Death Knight, explaining that its main technique was the constantly active skill Swamp of Silence, which was a skill that instantly silenced anyone who touched the black aura at the monster's feet. He concluded by recalling that the player association had initially assumed the Death Knight could be easily defeated by simply accompanying a ranged-type player. Shin concluded his analysis, revealing that the player association had set the difficulty of the Silent Ground to level 120, using the dungeon monster Ghoul as the standard. Shin finished his thought by confirming that the player association's assumption about the Death Knight being easily defeated was their biggest mistake, as the powerful monster was seen standing over multiple fallen opponents. Shin realized that the true power of the Death Knight was not something like the Swamp of Silence, but was instead the spirit of the swordsman that resided within the monster. Shin continued his internal analysis, concluding that, in other words, if the original swordsman was highly skilled, the Death Knight became exponentially more dangerous. While clashing with the monster, Shin thought to himself that the association had realized this truth too late and drastically adjusted the Silent Ground's threat level later. He cursed the situation and revealed that it was eventually discovered that the Death Knight in the Silent Ground ranked between A+ and S-class in terms of threat level. The Death Knight delivered a devastating strike, slamming Shin into the ground and causing him to spit out blood from the impact violently. As the Death Knight approached the impact site, Shin thought to himself that the situation was genuinely dangerous, reflecting that he might actually die this time. Shin cursed and thought out loud that this was seriously pissing him off, a statement which seemed to confuse the imposing Death Knight. After struggling to stand, Shin managed to push his sword into the ground to support himself, thinking that every time he declared he was going to die, the situation became incredibly hard, and concluding that people really do not change that easily. Despite his frustration, Shin continued to curse his own weakness, observing that every time things got a little dangerous, weak thoughts always came up first. Looking over his shoulder, Shin continued his self-criticism, realizing that at this rate, he hadn't changed at all. As the Death Knight stood before him, Shin suddenly addressed the monster directly, calling the imposing figure as a punk. Ignoring his weak thoughts, Shin challenged the Death Knight, demanding to know what the monster was staring at and ordering the bastard to come at him already, or perhaps he is too scared to. The knight, seeing this as a challenge, steeled himself, his eyes glowing much brighter than before. Under the guise of the Death Knight, Shin suddenly jumps off the platform, and the knight begins to follow. This is what he wanted. It would be stupid to fight that thing now that his HP is so low. He needs a way to recover his HP somehow, and his next meal is right in front of him, as the monsters are all gathered in the center, probably to avoid their fight. He smashes through the door, and the beasts within all scream out at him. He begins to cut one after another, hitting them with whirling strikes, finishing just as the Death Knight descends on the area. Thanks to his Clever Hunter title, Shin gets a bunch of HP, and thanks to his last artifact, he can make sure anyone who chases him won't catch him. Using all this, he continues to regenerate HP by clearing the beasts and running away from the Death Knight. Eventually, he gets to the deepest part, and surprisingly, there are still a ton of monsters here. Shin thinks of using them to fully recover his HP, but that's when the knight barges through faster than before, and Shin barely has enough time to dodge the incoming strike, which almost clears out all the monsters in the area. Shin knows that the attack wasn't for him. That bastard figured out what he was doing. The knight charges in, forcing Shin to dodge upwards and try to strike. Since he already recovered enough, using Knockback Burst, he should deal some good damage. Suddenly though, his effect gets silenced as the knight charges in, as he has the Swamp of Silence ability. Under this extremely vulnerable position, Shin takes the full brunt of the attack, which almost kills him. He knows he made a mistake. He told himself so many times that he would be wary of this. However, he just cannot give up like this. He promised his friend he would save his sister. It was his dying words, and he promised. As the knight watches to see if the target is dealt with, Shin speaks, noting that he was thinking wrong. It's his fault for trying to manage his encumbrance until his final boss went wrong. He's not going to keep making mistakes though. Now, it's life or death. He uses Psychedelic, knowing he cannot keep up, not because of the goal he set in the past, but because he cannot look past things he can protect. They begin to trade incredible blows, their strikes swifter than before. Just a light scratch is enough to rip away his palm skin. He will not be able to win through brute strength. That's clear now. However, he also sees that he is better than this guy in. He dodges a strike, goes behind the knight and tries to strike. His attacks do not matter if he cannot land them. He lands a critical hit, and using his luck stat, that critical hit range goes up to an amazing 600%. This breaks the knight's helmet as he crashes into the ground, standing defeated. Shin knows that he is not done yet and tells him to get up. The Death Knight crawls on his hands and uses the last life's flames as a sacrifice, increasing all his physical stats. Shin knows all Death Knights may have different sets of skills, but there is one thing that they all share. When their HP falls below 10%, they begin the death game of tag, with him receiving a warning that the Death Knight will explode in 10 seconds. With the level Shin is now, he will die just by a touch of that. Killing it is impossible. In this situation, he is nothing but prey. However, he will not let himself get eaten, as prey still has a role to fulfill. He begins to count down 10 seconds in his head. The knight charges in, but Shin dodges. The knight's strike cracks the ground just by grazing it. This makes Shin steel himself further and dashes away. But the Death Knight somehow grabs his blade from afar and tries to get it to himself. But Shin throws his blade at it, making the blade fall to the ground once more. Seeing this, the knight goes on a crazy rampage, with only 6 seconds left, but Shin's body is reaching its limit. His body is in overdrive. His lungs feel like they are about to be crushed, but he needs just a little more time. Just a little. The knight strikes the ground, sending Shin flying, but the knight doesn't stop and pounces on him. Shin thinks that he cannot use his abilities, so he has to think. If he doesn't, he will die right here. In the past, when he was dealing with some ghouls, he was very glad to get them, and his friend came too, looking much better than he did, even though they did the same thing. Shin noted that the ghouls were very hard to deal with. They kept using silence and spamming attacks. That is why his friend told him to get those status abnormality potions from the guild. But Shin didn't see the use of an artifact with a cooldown of 2 hours. His friend noted that even if the cooldown is long, he can still use it once, and make a chance with that, perfectly clearing a raid in the situation that was given to him. Isn't that what being a player means? Shin told him not to lecture him, and they bickered a bit, but this memory gave him an idea. He uses recovery, clearing the silence status, and he uses all his mana in one gigantic backstep. The knight screams out, 2 seconds remain, and Shin latches onto a chandelier. He cannot do anything else but this. So as the knight charges in, he lets go of the chandelier and lands on the ground. He doesn't have the strength to lift even one finger now, but the knight is still coming. Is he really going to die here? Where did he go wrong? However, he realizes that every step he took was followed by a mistake. He misjudged the strength of the opponent, took a large amount of damage, and repeated that mistake. He damns himself. He got too conceited, and now, he has lost his only chance at doing his life better. Suddenly though, the knight begins to dematerialize. The clock strikes 0, and the battle is over. Suddenly, with the defeat of the demon knight, Shin gets more XP than ever, and levels up several times, while also gaining his full HP back. Unfortunately, he still doesn't have stamina, and the side effect of psychedelic is kicking in too. He could keep up building penalties, but the final boss of this place is no easy opponent, which leads to one conclusion. What he needs to do now is recover his stamina and take the penalty. He deactivates Psychedelic, causing him to instantly feel a crushing pain all over his body. He is extremely exhausted, and the built-up damage of the debuff keeps attacking him, to the point that he may die. Without being able to do much, Shin loses consciousness, and at the entrance, everyone is confused. As the analysis said, he would be out by now. His friend's sister's comrades think they should make a report, as he might be in danger, but she does not notice that he was confident, so he should take responsibility. Still, he is staying way too much in that place. Just what is he doing in there? The mindless zombies of the dungeon eventually find the knocked-out Shin and slowly approach. They realize who it is and remember what he has done. Now that he is unconscious, they can finally feast on his flesh. Before they can do that, however, the goddess of luck appears. She says that she will not forgive anyone who attempts to harm her player, not that she would be able to do anything about it. Seeing her, the zombies immediately run away, scared of her. She also slaps Shin on the face, telling him to stop being a crybaby and get up, rebuking him and asking if this is all he will ever amount to. Seeing that he isn't waking up, she looks at him a bit, and then looks around. She finds a relatively safe and peaceful spot, and gets an idea, judging by her grin. It seems she has dragged Shin to that spot. He wakes up hours later, wondering where he is, before he suddenly jolts awake, realizing where he is, and wondering how long he has been passed out. Immediately, his entire body starts to recoil from the after effects of the psychedelics. His skills have hit hard. He didn't know it would be so bad, but he didn't have a choice against an opponent like that. Anyway, it seems the ghouls did not chase after him, but that doesn't really make sense. They are suckers for corpses, after all. He looks next to him and sees that the goddess of luck is there, resting. It seems that she has rescued him, but do constellations even sleep? He sighs, not knowing what happened while he was out, but now he has to take what he can. The reward for defeating the knight appears, and it's only a single small artifact. The Silent Ring, a platinum one. It has the special effect of mana circulation. Just by wearing it, his mana recovery speed will be raised by 4 times what it is now. However, this is only possible in a dungeon on nights when the moon is fully visible. During the day, it will be reduced by a factor of 2. Shin kicks a skull away in frustration. The system really expects him to be pleased with such a reward after he worked so hard, and it's not even a silence. Was he not rewarded because this guy wasn't the final boss? However, he gets an idea. Upon defeating the Death Knight, he has earned more XP than he could ever have imagined. This is a level he has never reached before. He opens his status and sees that he is now level 83, with a bunch of stats already boosted and 25 available points. Shin is shocked, as he did not expect to see such a high number. He is sure the last time he took down the Kobold King, he got to level 58. So just by taking down the Death Knight, he went up by over 20 levels. It seems that he got a crazy amount of experience in exchange for not getting many artifacts. As expected, his growth is really going up exponentially. He screams out in victory, although he kinda coughs on his own blood and wakes up the goddess of luck, who looks at him with a rather exasperated expression. After he makes a fire and they rest, Shin looks at it melancholically, as he hasn't been around a campfire in a while. It's been a long time since he was able to do this in a dungeon. It seems the goddess of luck is relaxing a little too much. She says that if he cannot enjoy the little things in life, then luck won't be able to find him either. Shin sighs. In the past, he did try to live like that too, but things are much different now. It's about time he grasps fate with his own 2 hands. He uses mana synchronization on the Silent Ring, and the preparations have been completed. It gives him the dish of bone marrow garnished with the quiet greens of the forest. Shin is pleased. He has never thought he would be able to eat something so rare. Even in his past life, he's only seen things like this on the internet. They used their spoons like this to lift it up and eat it. After doing so, the Silent Ring is absorbed, and Shin is genuinely pleased, as eating meat in front of a campfire is truly a dream. The goddess of luck looks at him, wondering now who the most relaxed person is around here. But she is also curious as to how he ended up acquiring that ability. It is freed from any restraints of growth, and it is exceedingly rare. Shin wonders if it is so. He explains that upon awakening, every player acquires an innate ability of sorts, at least as far as he's aware. The goddess of luck notes that she is unaware of players' individual traits. If that is so, acquiring such an ability is a great stroke of luck. Shin laughs sheepishly, noting that it really was a great stroke of luck, although it's more like she got lucky just because he regressed. The goddess says it's also luck that she met a growth type like him. It seems that becoming his constellation was an excellent decision. Shin is struck a bit by this title, a growth player. Indeed, if he keeps growing at this rate, he will be spreading his name across the country not too far into the future. However, there is no end to man's greed. If the stage isn't the country but the whole world, then there is one stage which no player can ever hope to reach, the true monster. He surpassed all limits of a mage player, having mastered all 4 elemental magic types. He alone has fended off the S-class Rift, a monster above all monsters, the United Kingdom's first high-rank archmage, Jaron Decay. He is far from even being able to look in his direction, but maybe one day he might be able to make him his goal. That's for his future self to worry about. He calls out to the goddess, and tells her that he will work hard to make sure her decision was the greatest stroke of luck and love. The goddess is surprised by his earnestness, but then smiles and goes to her full form, immediately pulling Shin in a tight hug. She says she knew she had an eye for people and is very happy, also saying that he said something very admirable, and she is proud of him. She has resolved herself to work hard to support him in the future as well, and the trust she has in him has deepened. Shin just tells her to get her cannons out of his face, as his muscles ache. But thanks to her giving him a hug with all her strength, his stamina recovers. Because of this, Shin makes his way to the Silent Ground's final boss room, going to the audience chamber of silence. The final boss is the Weary King Arch-Lich. He speaks in a foreign language before apologizing to Shin. He had not considered that his language would be tedious to repeat, but he had done well to come here. Now they will see if one such as him can cure his boredom. Shin is surprised that he was this kind of character all this time. Anyway, he just left them alone, even though they were camping right outside his door. Due to that, he managed to make a full recovery. Now he will be making quick work of him. He won't have any time to be bored, because he is finally done with this annoying ass place. The Archlich immediately begins attacking Shin, who dodges again and again. The Archlich finds him extremely entertaining, watching him scurry around like a rat, but now he wants to see how long he can keep running that mouth of his. He tries unleashing a pincer attack, but Shin gets out of the way swiftly. He knows what this skill is. It's subspace, and it's extremely dangerous. Weapons keep coming from every direction, and he can't even defend properly. Even using his defensive sword technique is difficult. He can't even tell how many more hits he can block. Do monsters like this just not run out of mana? On the other hand, he will run out of mana if he keeps using skills like this. Now that he thinks about it, his skill usage pattern feels like he is trying to bait him into draining all of his mana. The Archlich screams, noting that it's time to put an end to this show. It is just as he has said, as he has foretold. The end has come for him. The Archlich pulls out 2 giant hands from his back, allowing him to triple cast at once. He tells Shin to not be afraid. Death is rather peaceful. Shin tells him that indeed he can relax, as he will end this in the blink of an eye. The Archlich is an undead monster capable of casting high-level magic. It is classified as a high-rank mage. Compared to the Death Knight he fought earlier, it isn't nearly as dangerous, but in its current transformed state, it may prove a more difficult opponent. The reason for that is simple. Naturally, most mages utilize both hands to cast a single spell, the reason being that casting with one hand makes the spell weaker and less accurate. That is why the Archlich chose a very simple solution for this. It took advantage of its physical trait as an undead monster and forcibly increased the number of arms in order to cast more spells. Shin is positive that a perfect triple cast isn't possible, but being able to cast 3 spells in quick succession is simple, yet incredibly powerful. Although all he needs to do is take him out before he can do anything about it. Seeing him charge in, the Archlich knows that he has made a grave mistake and activates the language of silence, which silences Shin, not allowing him to use any skills for 3 seconds. Shin, however, still charges in, as even without skills, he is more than strong enough to take his head off. The Archlich doesn't even flinch as Shin's blade flies towards his head. That is why he said what he said. Using one hand, he uses the skill Extreme Close Range Blink. Once again, he will inform him that he has made the most terrible mistake. With that, he casts Flames of Purgatory. He should not wallow in grief though, as he merely suffered a poor bout of luck. Before he can stroke his ego further though, Shin just crashes through his casting and smashes his blade through his entire body, shattering it completely. The Archlich is shocked. He wonders how this happened, and Shin smiles. He said he had a poor bout of luck, huh? He is sorry. Luck is all that he has after all. The Archlich falls limply to the ground and thinks that he cannot be. Just how did he do something like this? Shin is surprised that he is surprised. The Lich has been watching him all this time. He should know that he has a skill that can undo his silence. The Archlich confirms that he knew that, but based on what he saw in his last fight, his fighting style, and the limits of his mana capacity, he was certain. He was not mistaken in what he saw. He knows this. He should not have been able to use any skills. His calculations were perfect. Shin confirms as such, but that was his mistake. If one can overcome their limits, even a vermin can keep growing. He has been able to win because of the mana circulation passive skill. Even though it is weaker than the ring's effect, he still has 3 times the mana recovery speed, which decreases to half during the day. Eventually, his comrade's sister sees him coming out of the gate. She is pretty shocked to see him alive, and the other workers there immediately tell them to grab the cameras, as they are going to start an interview. Shin looks around and sees that this entire place is surrounded by reporters. Immediately, he gets swarmed. A reporter almost shoves a microphone down his throat. Someone from the hospital's emergency ward rushes in, wondering if his pulse is stable and if he is okay. She asks if he lost a lot of blood and what his blood type is, and his personality type too, for some reason. Shin just tells them to buzz off and give him some space. His gaze immediately falters as he spots his old comrade next to his sister, who is pleased to see him alive, although he shouldn't expect any help. Shin doesn't even hear her, and continues staring at her brother. The entire world melts away, and Shin smiles wistfully, as finally, he can repay his debt. 10 years after awakening, he hit a wall. His growth had completely stagnated at that point. He had invested everything in his Devour artifact skill, failed to build any relationships, and ended up isolated from the rest of the player world. Something happened. It was just another day, with no one paying him any mind, but that's when he called out to him, noting that he would like him to join them for a raid. He was asking because one of their guild members came down with a stomachache, and he continued explaining their guild, looking really happy. Having never belonged anywhere, he wanted that sense of camaraderie and security too. However, he refused, noting that he was planning to raid alone today. It was a petty display of pride. At the time, he had 10 years of experience as a player. He couldn't stand the thought of others seeing him fail even to the most basic standard, and because of that pride, he had almost lost his life. Meddlesome as he was, this guy followed him into the dungeon. His life would have ended there and then. It was then that he realized something. It was thanks to him and thanks to this situation that he was able to cast aside his inferiority complex and start anew. If it weren't for him back then, he would never have changed, never would have been able to take that step. To thank him, after that, he took his offer without a second thought. He liked it there. It wasn't strong, but it was a guild that stood up for weaker players, and it reminded him of why he became a player in the first place. At one point, as they were drinking, he was complaining about really quitting this time, as he couldn't take it anymore. Shin wondered what he was going to do if he quit. He wanted to do anything else, maybe work part-time or start farming or something. It's just that he was afraid they were facing death over and over again, and watching people die with his own eyes is too much. Did he ever tell him that he formed this guild after his younger sister left home? That's why he decided he would help other players in danger. That is how he has lived his life up until this moment. He heard another guild member in the ICU quit and left yesterday, despite receiving so much help from him. Shin did not have the strength to help him when it mattered. He wanted to tell him to go ahead and quit, but the guild had grown too large. There was no way he could abandon the members whose livelihoods now depended on him. He could not say it back then, so he will say it now. He claps him on the shoulder and tells him to never even think about forming a guild, as he will just end up giving himself a hard time. He is not made for it. He is too kind a man. He apologizes, as he doesn't think they've met before. He doesn't really have a good guild, but his sister reacts and tries to attack Shin, noting that it wasn't enough for him to steal her dungeon. Now he's messing with his family too. Shin just excuses himself, hoping that this old comrade of his enjoys his life. Inside the Dimension Core residential sector B slums, a few strange beings are strewn about, seemingly living inside the city. One of them speaks in a foreign language, and the late bloomer model student is there too. He thinks that this is dangerous, and it is already too late. He must execute his plan immediately. On the news, it is confirmed that, due to information provided by player Shin Sang-hyun, they've received word that the dungeon Silent Grounds has had its danger level adjusted. Up until now, it was a dungeon that had many casualties compared to its danger level. It was revealed that a monster called the Death Knight was far more dangerous than their usual dungeon. As such, entrance to the Silent Grounds is forbidden until an accurate danger level is assessed. Shin thinks this is good. He is sure that what happened in the past will not happen again. Did he finally manage to save someone for the first time after regressing? He hopes so. He's gained a lot from going into the Silent Grounds, and it's not just a matter of artifacts and titles. He has also gained information about the late bloomer model student. The rewards he got from the Archlich this time are pretty insane. A dimensional bag with a subspace skill allowing him to store anything anywhere. The Lich Ring, which has the special effect of silence and gives him 25 mana. And the telekinesis necklace, which, as the name implies, has telekinesis. Shin was shocked. The rewards this time were simply insane. He kinda figured out silence would appear, but subspace and telekinesis as well. Just these two skills alone will improve his flexibility in combat from now on. Depending on how he uses them, he might be able to attain an entirely different level of combat. He has never heard of anyone acquiring skills like these in his past life. Is he really going to receive the title of first finally? Meanwhile, the goddess of luck grabs at his clothes, expressing her complaints that despite such good things happening to him, he didn't give her a word of thanks. Shin does so rather haphazardly, noting that he is incredibly grateful, but she refuses to let him go just with that. He should properly express his gratitude. However, Shin goes through with the mana synchronization. He gains 3 dishes to eat: a purple soul macaron, whispers of the void meringue, and millet filet of infinite layers. He was kind of confused by these names and wonders what the arch-lich was eating all this time. First, he tries the infinite layers dish, which explodes in a world of flavor. As the name implies, it really did have infinite layers. There is no end to the layers in his mouth. It is an unending flavor, like something out of a dream. He apologizes profusely to the dessert for looking down on them until now. He is really truly sorry. After absorbing all 3 artifacts, he thinks that he thought that the arch-lich wouldn't shut up. However, he wasn't bad at all when it comes to meals. He was offered a choice to bind telekinesis or silence. Selecting telekinesis is definitely the right choice for the great sword of fighting spirit, but the problem is silence. It doesn't have a sustained effect like stun or freezing on it. He doesn't think binding it to full charging or no big burst will have much of an effect either. He doesn't know what the risks are. The best choice for now is to bind it to his basic attack. However, when he tries, the system explains that additional requirements must be met to bind the absorbed effect to basic attack. He will have to expend 1 mana for every basic attack that will allow the usage of silence. Shin thinks that's pretty bad, but doesn't that mean that just like it says, he will use up 1 mana every single strike? He did get a mana-related title thanks to taking the Arch-Lich down. It's the end of Twisted Desire, which gives him 120 mana. If he uses mana circulation, he will have a constant stock of mana. But if he ever happens to be surrounded by a bunch of weak monsters, it will just be an unnecessary risk. He thinks about it a bit, and then scoffs, as sometimes one has to risk it. He can't grow if he stays in his comfort zone all the time. With this, he binds silence to his basic attack. Suddenly, a constellation portal appears behind him, the surrounding energy growing bleak. Shin wonders if she called other constellations again, but the goddess of luck noted that she was surprised as well. She did not have a hand in what is happening now. It appears that 3 new constellations have come for Shin. The great conqueror of the Mongols says that he left a great impression on him with his manly way of fighting. The Sun King has said that it is important. A diamond in the rough like him requires a supporter who can provide an appropriate reward or care. The goddess of luck immediately voiced her complaint regarding other constellations appearing, despite knowing she is present. She insists that they return. However, that's when a new goddess has appeared, while saying that the player should not be monopolized. The goddess of luck is surprised as she sees her, and the new goddess tells the great conqueror of the Mongols to move, as he reeks. He laughs, and gets out of the way. Shin was surprised. A new goddess? He feels like he can tell who that is from her appearance. But did that constellation have an alias like that? Anyways, the new goddess smiles and stares at him, saying that she has been carefully observing his courageous spirit. She figured he left a great impression on her, and has added that she has decided to come here in person. She also says that a man like him is more than worthy to stand at her side. He should leave that antiquated goddess and come stand at her side, the side of a sophisticated and glamorous goddess like herself. The goddess of luck immediately berates her. She is a shameless goddess with no regard for authority, and dares to attempt to assume her position. The new goddess commands the other constellations to remove these ancient remnants of a bygone era from her noble gaze. As they continue bickering, Shin doesn't really know what the relationship is like, but he can see that they do not get along at all. The new goddess also says that she has secret information to share with Shin. He should hear about it and form a contract with her. As this information is about the late bloomer model student, immediately Shin grabbed her by the hands and shook her a bit, asking if he had formed a contract with another player yet. But more importantly, just how is he doing? Just what has he been doing up until now? The new goddess explained that while traveling, she happened to find him in the slums of the Dimension Core. She added that he was a maniac obsessed with the eschatology of the Dimension Core itself. If he wished to learn more about him, however, he must abandon that goddess and form a contract with her. Now Shin sits in his apartment and thinks about it. The eschatology of the Dimension Core, huh? He can't figure out what she meant by that. When they were together in his past life, he never brought up something like that. Suddenly, the goddess of luck arrives, and Shin asks if she got any information. She shakes her head, apologizing, but that the late bloomer model student was nowhere to be found in the slums. Shin thanks her for looking, and the goddess of luck also notes that it was refreshing to see him humble that sly dog. Shin, however, is more focused on the task at hand. Just what was that guy doing in the slums? He said that's the place where those who fail to become constellations go. Where is he? And what has he been doing all of this time? At Hyunjung Corporation, the president shared the participant list for the upcoming open market. Naturally, her gaze falls on Shin Sang-hyun, as they have quite the interesting guest attending. This is Hyunjung's corporation president, Han Hyunjung, a level 900S plus ranked player. Driving in his car, Shin concludes he couldn't find any information about the late bloomer model student, or the eschatology of the Dimension Core. Of course, this doesn't mean he could form a contract with that goddess. She was most likely interested in him just because of her selfish desire to ascend as a mythical constellation. Moreover, if he had made a contract with her, and faced some accident that doomed his growth, he would have been screwed. Staying together with the goddess of luck was the best decision. After a long while of thinking, Shin finally arrives at his destination, the Hyunjung Market. The open market, as the name implies, it's a place where players can freely buy and sell artifacts. Because artifact trades are done face-to-face, a market that would guarantee the player's safety in exchange for a commission fee was bound to form. Exchanging goods at high prices was a very dangerous thing to do in the past. That's why the most important condition of the open market is safety. Major guilds across the world operate the majority of open markets, and the unparalleled top market in the country is exactly this one, Hyunjung Market. Although the market is affiliated with the Hyunjung Corporation, a strong guild, the main reason for the success is its leader, Han Hyunjung, the only player in the world with an S+ grade buff ability. High-ranking players come from all over the world to the market and act as implicit guards to keep the peace. The number of people wanting her buffs is so high that no one would dare cause trouble in the market. After entering, Shin is intercepted by a female guide, who, before letting him enter, demands his entrance code. Shin presents himself, and notes that it has been about a day since he received the permission. The guide checks her tablet, and confirms his access to the 8th basement floor. The revelation leaves Shin utterly shocked, and he sweats while wondering why Han Hyunjung rated him so favorably, as that floor is the VIP floor. Shin overhears two spiteful men gossiping. The pair maliciously slander Kim Miso, claiming she lost her boyfriend to greed, and boasting that they could toy with her. Shin listens with a flat expression, privately disgusted by their filth, and feeling sympathetic toward the girl. Unable to ignore the slander, Shin loudly condemns the market for allowing such behavior, resulting in the two trash talkers getting blacklisted by the guards. Shin smirks with satisfaction, noting internally that this is how adults fight. Eager to start shopping, Shin goes into the elevator and calculates his recent earnings of nearly 4 billion won, knowing he cannot afford anything on the 8th floor but hoping the window shopping will spur his growth. The doors open to a sparkling, luxurious room where guide Song Ah-yeon introduces herself. Shin feels intimidated, like a child in a luxury store, but pushes forward to inspect the glowing displays. He stops completely, freezing in a dark silhouette of shock, when he spots the Book of the Abyss, priced at a staggering 140 billion won. Ah-yeon explains the epic artifact, prompting Shin to force a sweaty smile and pretend he does not need it because he is a swordsman. He quickly declines her offer to see swords, secretly hoping she missed his internal panic, before curiously pointing out a bright light, illuminating a special stage. Stepping closer, Shin watches two men marvel at the display before his own eyes widen in absolute disbelief. An explosive wave of fiery aura blasts outward, revealing an almighty-grade mage stone engulfed in raging flames. Shin stares in astounded silence as he realizes this is the absolute highest tier of artifact. The menacing starting price is 3 trillion won. Seeing this, he concludes that the seller, Jaren Decay, not only has artifacts of the highest grade in his possession, but that he also has much stronger artifacts than the ones he is selling. He notes that he came here pretty motivated, but now he is realizing how powerless he really is. Seeking relief, Shin retreats to the much calmer platinum zone on the 4th basement floor. Spotting a glowing blue necklace priced at 700 million won, he laughs aloud, relieved to find numbers that no longer threaten his sanity. A smiling young man approaches from behind, warmly introducing himself as Jung Jun-hyuk. Shin immediately recognizes him as the future famous player known as Perfect Storm. Keeping things casual, Shin claims he is just browsing, but Jung helpfully reaches into his jacket and displays the platinum-grade Stream of Life ring, explaining its mana-boosting effects. Shin narrows his eyes, suspecting the man wants to utilize the market's direct transaction exemption to bypass the standard 5% fee. Though he finds the ring neat, Shin politely apologizes and declines the offer, prompting Jung to laugh off the rejection with understanding. Suddenly, they both get distracted, as a woman eating pizza on the floor is arguing with the guards. They scold her lack of manners, saying even if eating inside is not illegal, The smell of the dozens of pizzas she has beside her is getting annoying. At first, Shin stares blankly at the bizarre scene, but then, he interrupts to politely ask about her artifacts, and the woman casually tells him to check them himself between bites of pizza. Reaching for a glowing blue band, Shin's eyes widen with excitement as he pulls up the stats for the platinum-grade Ring of Speed, realizing it is exactly what he needs. He inspects the potential reinforcement ring next. Shin smiles cunningly, deducing that their heavy mana consumption makes them worthless to regular players, but perfect for his unique devouring ability. In his past life, he consumed a similar artifact to gain power. He startles the girl by decisively offering to buy both, asking what her price is. The nervous woman tries to hustle him, drastically overpricing the rings before offering a fake discount of 2 billion won. When Shin simply stares at her in dead silence, she begins sweating profusely and lowers the price to 1.8 billion. Refusing to speak, Shin casts a terrifying shadowy glare that causes the vendor to shrink back in absolute terror. Defeated, she checks her phone to see a completed transfer for just 1.3 billion won, begrudgingly thanking him and complimenting his ruthless haggling skills. Shin smirks with satisfaction, internally attributing his mastery of haggling to his previous life of poverty. As he prepares to leave, the woman stands up and cheerfully mentions using the money to feed the orphanage she runs, instantly freezing Shin in surprise. He crouches back down to look intently at the photo she offers to show him. The woman proudly displays a picture of herself surrounded by smiling children. Shin stares at the phone screen, his eyes widening in absolute, paralyzing shock. Years earlier, a young Shin stood in that exact same building alongside the very same director. Back in the present, he stares in disbelief at the director of Joy Orphanage, the place he came from. Thank you for watching. See you next time.